We're starting. I'd like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of Tuesday, August 4th. Denise, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cassidy? Here. Councilmember Hernandez?
Here.
Councilmember Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson?
Here.
And Mayor Marshall.
Here. If you'd please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. You may begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you would please remain standing, Pastor Scott Smeck-Pepper will lead us in the invocation.
Thank you, Annie. As your faith so leads you, please join me in these thoughts as I lift them in prayer. Today, Lord God, we pray first for our community leaders. We pray specifically for those in a decision-making position today. We lift up Richard Hernandez, Ole Olson, and Joe Sampson. We thank you for them and for all those who lead our community. Thank you for their courage, for their service, and their leadership. We ask that you encourage and refresh them. We pray your Spirit guides them as they lead us to unity and reconciliation, champion the best in our community, call us to radically love and serve each other, and envision the future for our community. Give them wisdom to seek prosperity and, when needed, healing for our community, and to understand the concerns of all the people of Avalon. We pray also for ourselves. We pray our words and actions will reflect the best of who you made us to be. Teach us to consider first the needs of others before we consider our own. Allow us to be positive in the face of victories or defeats. We pray a spirit of peace and unity be found even in the midst of our disagreements. We pray we will not let evil divide us, but we pray the spirit of peace will bring us together. May we come together as a community with things in common, in unity. All this I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Scott. Announcements?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to introduce, there he is, our new finance director, Mr. Bob Mesher, who is right here in back of the room. Bob officially joined us this week. David. So Bob, if you wouldn't mind just coming forward to the podium, just say hi real quick and just so the community can see you. He's thrown us off right away by shaving his beard, and so we've been looking around for, yeah, exactly. This is Bob, okay? Welcome, Bob.
Good.
Welcome, Bob.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm very excited to be part of this community now and this very passionate community. And I look forward to a great experience here.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Avalon.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Written communications?
Oh, actually, I think there might be another announcement, though.
I have one more announcement. Just for members of the community, please be advised, starting tomorrow, Wednesday, August 5th, there will begin replacing the sewer lateral in front of the picnic fry on Clarissa Street. The work is expected to impact only the outbound lane of Clarissa on the picnic fry side of the street, and traffic flow will be maintained throughout the duration of the work. Anticipated to be complete by Friday afternoon, August 7th. If it becomes clear that the two-way traffic will not be able to be maintained, they will move, with the city's consent, to reroute incoming traffic onto Lower Terrace Road up to Beacon. So please understand this is all good for us, and while it might be a little bit of an impact to those of us that frequent that intersection several times a day, just please be patient while that important work is being maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. Presentations?
Well, actually, before we get there, Mayor, I think on the written communication section, I just,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. Wanted you and the council to know that we've received a huge volume of written communication on tonight's agenda item, and we do have it. I'm not going to go through every single piece of communication that was received. I think a number of it went directly to you. Those that we did receive here, we did our best to pass on to you. We do have a file in the clerk's office for anybody who wants to review that. It's all public record.
Great, thank you. Presentations, there are none. City manager report,
I have none.
city attorney report,
Nothing tonight.
thank you. Council member report.
I have two quick ones. I will be attending Gateway Cities Council of Government tomorrow night, as well as the Transportation Committee, and wanted to see if the city manager, if we could, the sirens that go off when there's an emergency or a call to action, is it possible that we could have that information posted on the website?
Yes.
Given we've used those a couple times recently, there's been lots of questions in the community about what means what. So if the council, pleasure of the council, if we could add that to the website, that'd be great.
And could you add that to our message board in Vaughn's?
Absolutely, both.
Because if those of you have seen that, it's working very well. So thank you, Vaughn's, for allowing the message board to be placed there. Okay. Cindy? That's it? Okay. And I would just like to say, yesterday, Ben and Dennis J.H. and I had the opportunity to meet with Eagle Scout Nicholas Smith from Troop 382 out of Murrieta. He's an Eagle Scout. And I'd like all of you to take a little walk out to the dive park. He has created a beautiful educational and informational sign with fish and a little bit of history. It's right as you enter. You can't miss it. It's beautiful. So please go take a look. We're very proud of Nicholas and the contribution that he has given to the city of Avalon. So, okay. Oral communications. This is when members of the community may address us. At this time, no action will be taken, and speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes.
And Mayor, if I
These are on items other than what we are going to be doing in general business. Okay? Consent calendar, there are none. So I will, as mayor, I will be recusing myself as I am a resident of 330 Descanso.
And I will be recusing myself from our general business item, the appeal of Vaughn's, due to a financial conflict of interest.
In particular, income from the island company, which is affected, and the mayor's property is within the prescribed limits of the project. So,
And then, given the length of the potential appeal, I will not be returning to close the meeting. If there's no further business, then I'll just excuse myself for the evening.
And Idaho.
Have a nice night, ladies.
yeah.
We all ready? New business.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, there is one item under general business this evening. It is the appeal of the Planning Commission's decision approving bonds. And this evening, Mr. Steve Flint, the city's planning consultant, will be presenting the staff report on this item. You will also be hearing from the applicant as well as the appellant. And I'm aware of at least 32 individuals that have asked to speak on this item as well. I have their names here. And so just want you to be aware that that will be part of what we need to cover this evening. There could be additional folks that sign in, as you know.
Okay. Steve, it's up to you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Hernandez, and Councilman Sampson. As Ben said, this is a request to consider an appeal of the Planning Commission's action to adopt a mitigated negative declaration back in November and to approve a coastal development permit and site plan for the construction of a two-story, little over 23,000 square foot grocery store on Beacon. The project site itself is 3.13 acres. It's owned by the Santa Catalina Company. It's located on the east side of Beacon between Catalina and Sumner Avenues. The site is zoned commercial, and the grocery store use itself is principally permitted within the commercial zone. So this is the zone, if you're going to put a grocery store in, this is the zone you would find it's allowed as a permitted use. Surrounding properties are zoned commercial and special commercial, many of which are developed for residential uses, including several vacation rentals. The city's general plan also designates the site as commercial, so the zoning and the general plan designation on the site are both consistent. Just as a little background, the components that make up this project, as I mentioned before, it's a little over 23,000 square feet building that ranges up to approximately 34 feet above the finished grade, above the existing grade. And those actually occur in different elements. There are other elements that are actually lower than that. In this zone, 40 feet is a permitted height. In the adjacent special commercial zones, the height is 28 feet. That's what's permitted. The majority of the administrative areas would be on the second floor, and a mezzanine about 3,900 square feet. There would be a total of 26 off-street parking places. 23 of those would be autoet-sized for vehicles, 1 standard-sized vehicle space, and 2 ADA accessible spaces. There will also be bike racks in the drop-off area at the curb on Sumner to allow for a taxi service. And on the south end is a loading dock with trash collection and recycling to be located there. The loading dock will be fully enclosed with a roof feature over the top of it for sound attenuation. The exterior of the store will look kind of like a Craftsman style. It's sort of an eclectic style with shiplap siding and stone wainscoting along the foundation. There will be trellises along some of the other walls of the building to add some interest and break up long faces of the wall to provide a little more visual interest and soften the structural elements. So November 19th, the Planning Commission considered the site plan, coastal development permit, and a conditional use permit to allow for a restaurant and bar cafe use within the store itself. As part of that process, there was a mitigated negative declaration that was prepared in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, which we call CEQA. After a hearing, the Planning Commission adopted the mitigated negative declaration and approved the site plan and coastal development permit, but denied the conditional use permit for the restaurant, bar, and cafe use within the store. So tonight, that is what's being considered is the mitigated negative declaration, the site plan, and coastal development permit. In December, the city received an appeal that was filed on behalf of the Catalina Eucalyptus Sumner Alliance, and the council was asked in that letter to hear this application on a de novo basis, which means you're not limited to only the items that are brought forward. You can hear the whole of the application itself. In terms of the appeal, the letter that was submitted with the appeal form identified 4 specific areas. The first was that it suggested that an environmental impact report should have been done so that we could have been considered different alternatives for this use. If you go through the CEQA requirements, you will find that an environmental impact report is required when you can find there are negative impacts, adverse impacts that cannot be mitigated. At that point, you would do an environmental impact report and look at different alternatives. In this case, we did not find any of those impacts. The second point also raised the question of why an environmental impact was not done, implying that the report itself had identified items that could not be mitigated. Particularly, they mentioned water, greenhouse gas emissions, noise, safety, traffic, and congestion. And in response to this, the staff actually took the mitigated negative declaration back, reworked it, and included additional mitigation that addressed greenhouse gas, which actually created no impacts at all based on the report that was prepared by First Carbon Solutions in March. The other items that were considered had to do with the aesthetics, and that being lighting and putting mitigation to reduce the amount of lighting at night, and biological impacts, study for nesting birds in the area that might be disturbed during the construction phase. Also along those lines, CEQA does say that if a negative declaration, during the negative declaration process, there is substantial evidence in light of the whole record, it may have a significant effect on the environment which cannot be mitigated or avoided. The lead agency shall prepare a draft EIR, certify a final EIR prior to the approval of the project. Again, in this case, we didn't identify any of the impacts that could not be mitigated, and therefore a mitigated negative declaration is the appropriate tool for that. The third point they raised had to do with environmental impacts caused by the conditions of approval, implying that there was 1 hour parking that was going to create some congestion, shopping carts that would create blight. However, there was no evidence to really back this up. There was nothing that could show the level of impact and what physical hardship there would be or any adverse impacts that would result. And again, CEQA says you've got to prove that there is an impact in order to make that allegation. And finally, the applicant suggested that there were no concrete and enforceable conditions of approval. And again, they didn't identify any of the conditions that could not be enforced, none of the mitigation measures that could not be implemented. So it's staff's feeling that we could fully mitigate. So again, there are specific findings that must be made in improving the site plan and the coastal development permit. The first one has to do with the site plan itself, and essentially the use, every use, development of land, application of development standards shall take place in compliance with all applicable provisions of this title. In staff's opinion, this fully complies with the development standards of the commercial zoning district. It meets the height standards, it meets all the coverage requirements, parking requirements are met, so it does comply. The second item, which is item B of the site plan, there we go. It says every use, development of land, and application of development standards shall be considered on the basis of the suitability for the particular use of development intended and the total development, including the application of prescribed development standards, shall be so arranged as to avoid traffic congestion, ensure the protection of public health, safety, and general welfare, prevent adverse effects on neighboring property, and shall be in general accord with all elements of the general plan. It's staff's opinion that these criteria can be met with this project. There will be less traffic generated as a result of the relocation of the loading zones, and there will be no adverse effect on neighboring properties, and that it meets all development standards again. And the third finding under the site plan says every use, development of land, application of development standards shall be considered on the basis of suitable and functional development design, but is not intended that such approval shall be interpreted to require a particular style or type of architecture. Again, we have no design or development standards for that type of architecture, although the architecture that is proposed for this project is suitable and is compatible with other architectural styles in the neighborhood. And then the second item is the coastal development permit. There are two findings that must be made. First of all, the project does constitute development as defined in the California Coastal Act, and therefore coastal development permit is required. First finding is that the proposed development conforms to the certified local coastal program, and the local coastal program does designate this particular site for commercial use, which allows for grocery stores, so it is compatible. And the second finding is that all development seaward of the nearest public highway to the shoreline, the proposed development conforms to the public access and recreation policies of Chapter 3 of the Coastal Act. This project is not seaward of the nearest public highway, is located quite a bit distant from the coast and will not cause any access problems there at all. So in conclusion, staff has forwarded its recommendation, and that recommendation is to uphold the Planning Commission's original approval of the site plan and conditional use permit, and to adopt a modified mitigated negative declaration together with the mitigation monitoring program that also accompanies that. One item that I did want to point out is that in the preparation of the document that went forward, this is the mitigation program. We did leave out one of the mitigation measures. The mitigation measure itself was contained in the modifier, the amended MND. We just left it off of this chart, but we have now put that on the chart and make that part of the public record as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Hernandez? Okay.
I'm wondering, what was your outcome as far as the backing up of the trucks? Now, did we get any results from that? And could you please present them? Because I don't quite understand how we're going to back those trucks up.
Sorry to interrupt, Councilmember Sampson. Do you want to maybe, if the Mayor Pro Tem is okay, move to the presentation from the applicant to address some of these concerns, or would you like to have the staff respond at this time?
In other words, you can have questions now, and Mr. Flint would defer to the traffic engineer who dealt with that.
That's fine. You guys can deal with that however you want.
Or what can happen is the developer can present its plans and talk about those traffic matters, and then the opponents can present their opposition, and you can ask questions of the developer.
Mr. Flint's presentation.
Right. Okay.
He had said something to the effect of that it was recognized that it's okay and it's safe and there's not a problem with the backing up on the four corners of Beacon and Catalina Street. Can you explain that a little
Sure,
more?
I'd be happy to. I think that the reference was actually to the intersection of Beacon and Sumner. And the fact that the trucks now will not make it to that corner.
Yeah, right.
That is going to be eliminated. I can tell you that that was one item in November that the Planning Commission wanted further consideration of, and I believe it was January 21st. That item, the loading zone itself, came back as a separate item for them to consider. The applicant presented, I think, 3 different options. One of them involved using Catalina as the main entrance into the side of the building.
I'm aware of that.
And it was determined at that time that the original proposal to back in off of Beacon was the best solution, and that's the solution that was presented.
Okay, and then we'll talk about that more in depth tonight. I have some concerns about that particular intersection, but yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to make sure that there's more to be said on this topic.
Okay.
I guess now we will go to the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Thank you very much. My name is Brian Bratton. I am Regional Vice President of Vaughn's Safeway Albertsons. Slight change from the last time I was up here. We've gotten a little bit bigger in some respects. But tonight I'm here representing Vaughn's. And I thought the best way to do that would be to maybe take us back a little bit and kind of see what we've done over the past year, whether it's a result of meetings that we had with residents, with staff, with council members, with planning commission, et cetera, to get kind of where we were today in terms of getting input and all of the factions that we looked at, and some of those things that were addressed in the mitigated deck. So if you'll bear with me, some of you may have seen these slides. I know we have a great turnout tonight, and there's probably a lot of the audience that have not. The first picture here, of course, is the aerial of Avalon, which I know you're all familiar and I've shown in the past. The only comment I want to make here is that the developable area that conveniently serves both the residents and visitors of Avalon is very sparse because of the geography and existing dense development. And, it doesn't take much to see the green patch in the middle there, at least the area that connotates the borders where we're looking at. The island is served by our 2 tiny stores located 2 blocks apart, labeled by the residents as the main and express stores. We've served Catalina since 1943 for 75 years, although today I was actually challenged on that. Somebody said it was before the war. All freight comes in by barge 3 times a week from Palos Verdes and is delivered to the main store. All merchandise is then sorted and loaded on pallets and taken 2 blocks through 3 alleys across 2 streets and around our express store to the rear side entrance. This traverse occurs numerous times a day, very inefficient and difficult to manage from a perishable product quality perspective. That is from our perspective. From that of our customer, if they need to fill their basket, it requires either a pedestrian traverse from one store to the other, or a second vehicle circuitous trip in their vehicle from one store to the other. 2 trips, 1 shopping experience as it applies to incremental traffic. That's the situation that we have today. This is our main store, 5,900 square foot after we completed a facelift a few years ago. As you can see, the size of our Island flagship store is slightly larger than a 7-Eleven. Its main perishable components are the produce and meat departments in this store. The Express store was acquired many years ago. This is the home of our liquor and deli departments. It is controlled by a lease and has been on month-to-month rental since 2007. Somewhat of a tenuous situation. These next slides show how the project transitioned as we got input from government officials, city staff, and the public. We wanted to be clearly understood that every step of the design process took into account the conditions of the site and input we received. A great deal of time and effort was expended to get where we are today, and this is the first attempt drawn in 2013, and it's titled Contemporary. It was a good first attempt, but really was not relevant to the design theme of the community. I think I skipped one there. And it's bad when I have my glasses on at the same time. This is the Mission Santa Barbara style, thought to be appropriate for perhaps Old Town San Diego or Santa Barbara. The design did not get a high acceptance rating. Perhaps part of that was the mass of the structure, and that was something that was talked about in terms of how it appears from street level. Versions of the Tropical Village style. The only thing that came out of this design in May of 2014 was the sloping roof to take away that big box feeling. Also provided a more village-like approach to retailing. The cannery style, more of a Cape Cod or Pacific Northwest style of development on the seashore. Elements were liked, but that wasn't where the community wanted to go, and from the comments that we got. In June of 2014, this is another version of the cannery. There were aspects of this design that everybody liked, so we continued making change without too much attention to detail. In June of 2014, this is one of the final versions of the plan, and it represents much of the design elements of the project as we see today. This is a colorized representation of the prior slide as we worked with city staff and received input from the elected public officials. You know, before I move on to where we ended up with our design, I thought it appropriate to show some examples of residential and commercial development that surrounds our site. We were asked to take into account both the design themes and the vertical massing of the properties around us. Although the structures around us are incredibly interesting, there did not seem to be any overriding theme as it came to design. Once again, you can see various types of design, and of course the residents taking full advantage of the extent of the height limitations up to 30 feet. In addition, as it is shown on the bottom right example at Catalina and Beacon, the vertical massing and height from the sidewalk, which we were encouraged not to emulate, definitely appears here. Notwithstanding the theme variations as are expressed here in the Tudor Austrian theme home on the left and the cannery loft style design on the right, the designs are pleasing. However, both of them once again rise to a significant height above the sidewalk, which we tried to minimize in our overall design. First, we got to this concept. The front elevation was designed to be soft and unobtrusive, set back from the street. The parking is landscaped, drought-tolerant landscaping all around, and the lighting is set to dark sky tolerances. I heard that brought up tonight. That was something that we planned right from the beginning. And that's something that we see imposed in other desert communities around, for example, Palm Springs. A single interest enabled us to further enhance the design features using different materials, including local stone. The sides of the building have been significantly lowered by use of a cantilever truss system, which lowers the exterior off the sidewalk but preserves interior heights to such that we can have a prototypical shopping experience for our customers. The side rear elevation reflects the landscaping we've incorporated around the site to once again soften the visual impact of the store. In only 2 places have we reached heights that are still below maximum. And lastly, we have enclosed our loading dock with an automatic door to hide the activity associated with unloading freight. Please note that the enclosed loading bay incorporated after the receipt of comment from residents in the Planning Commission. As reflected on our story pole representation after an initial error was corrected by the building heights all fall within the zoning regulations. I know this is tough to read, so I'll kind of try to make it simple. In the top picture, though, it may be tough to see from your vantage point. Storefront elevations range from 14 feet 9 inches to 23 feet 10 inches. All of these measurements are from street level, including any increase that might be required in the foundation level. The apex of the building, which is significantly recessed from the storefront, right in the middle, measures 30 feet 4 inches. Along Catalina, once again, over 56 feet of frontage is at 18 feet 10 inches. The remaining 39 feet has a peak elevation of 31 feet 1 inch. These relatively small high points of the structure are required to house such things as the elevator, shaft, storage, and mechanical room. We made every effort to keep the heights in this area as low as possible and believe they are in keeping with similar heights of the commercial lodging facilities in close proximity. The vast majority of the longest expanse along Beacon is only 16 feet 10 inches, representing the fact that we listened and reacted to the desire to mitigate the mass and height of the building from a pedestrian perspective. The peak on this side elevation is 30 feet 5 inches, but is only 36 feet wide on Catalina. In November 2014, the Planning Commission asked us to examine other potential configurations of the loading bay. 2 other concepts emerged from our efforts in this regard. The first, which is not represented here, had our trucks entering off of Beacon into a drive-through enclosure. They would then back up to the dock. Once complete, the tractor would emerge further down Beacon, find an area to turn around, if with a trailer, and return along the truck route. This was to avoid the backing up and beeping sound when in reverse. However, this created 2 other issues. Where does the tractor trailer turn around to reverse direction? And secondly, decrease the footprint of our store by over 25%, which from our perspective was not financially feasible, considering the significant investment to build this new facility. And in the end, it was discovered it would only serve to eliminate the reverse beeping for what amounted to 4 minutes in any 24-hour period. The second configuration pictured above had the trucks deviated from the truck route down Catalina to enter. 2 issues once again. Catalina was not designed to handle the weight of truck traffic. It also eliminated essential parking created by the other plan on Catalina for the neighboring establishments. Both were discarded in favor of the original design, and we worked with the freight company and discussed the safety requirements. Everything, of course, is a significant improvement over what we have today, which is about with the trucks backing up a half a block off of the shoreline. And this would be done with the use of a receiving clerk that would be brought out to direct the traffic, watch the pedestrians as the truck maneuvers into the position, all of which takes between 5 and 15 seconds. Another new slide. This is the first time this slide has ever been presented. It represents the fixture plan or layout of the store. As you enter the store, there would be your new produce department. Service deli adjacent it, leading straight into bakery, dairy, and a complete dairy aisle. A meat department along the back of the store. Frozen food aisles that are over 2 aisles deep, and a complete liquor department in the front of the facility. Probably a better way to depict our new store is by example. Now, this is the produce department, which is kind of vintage to say the least. The equipment is obsolete and inefficient. This is, of course, a much larger store, but it's representative of the type of fixtures, product diversity, and holding power we can provide in the new facility. Our deli department is probably one of our most difficult to manage and provide any degree of selection. This would be more representative of the deli department in the new store. dairy department. This is an example of just the milk and fresh juice portion of our new facility, larger than the entire deli department. And also, in addition to that, as I pointed out, we'd have another complete aisle for things such as yogurt and cheese. The meat department in our existing store has such limitations, it's impossible for us to provide Avalon with anything but the bare essential variety. This is a large prototype, but it does represent what you can expect. Frozen food. It's hard to pick which department is more severely lacking, but if I had to pick one, it would have to be here. It's my understanding we carry something like 2 types of pizza and only 1 door of novelty items. Probably less capacity than a convenience store on the mainland. In a prototype store, even on the island with its right-sized facility, the number of doors dedicated to just pizza would be approximately 4. Our liquor department. And what it would be in a new facility. Wine department, new facility. A couple other pictures of what we call center of store, the soda aisle. This is a picture actually of our Long Beach marketplace, which is somewhat representative of what we are planning here in terms of size. The current aisles, yeah, well, it'll be nice to push your cart down them without knocking over merchandise or the person next to you. Most importantly, I wanted to take this opportunity to show you the before and after pictures of what you can expect in your new Vaughn's Avalon's Marketplace. And here are the check stand areas of the 2 stores. I'm sure many of you experienced the lineups to the back wall during the summer. This is what you can get, elbow room. This aerial shows the location of the new site in proximity to the existing 2 stores. As mentioned in my opening slide, the store and parking area are situated on a large tract of undeveloped, commercially zoned land that will feasibly and conveniently service the resident and visitor population. A vacant site plan showing the store and parking area. It encompasses only the vacant parking lot behind the mini golf course, which is totally left undisturbed. There's a lot of talk about environmental concerns. And we took a lot of that to heart, and it's, it's something we try to do in a lot of stores, but this was above and beyond. This is a unique store for a unique area. Solar panels, water-tolerant landscaping, low-flow drip system, air-cooled versus refrigeration condensers. Refrigerated condensers are water-cooled, and so we're using air-cooled here, which totally decreases the need to save water. I mean, to use water. Of course, high efficiency in the water closets and urinals, but I recognize the fact that that's a saltwater system. Energy efficient refrigerated cases, cooking equipment meets or exceeds EPA standards, skylights, 11 proposed, which in order to build skylights nowadays under the codes is you have to be able to prove that you have a 90% daylight coverage. So when you walk into this store, it'll feel like you're still outside. Storefront glass on 3 sides and dormer windows on the roof for natural light, LED interior and interior lighting and refrigerated cases, computer-controlled management system and lighting controls, use of available local materials including the rock finish. This is the rooftop plan of the store. In the flat areas of the roof, we were asked to provide the panels, and there you see 813 square feet dedicated to 39 panels. As we're very early in our drawings, we don't have our mechanical drawings complete, although it's thought that if we were able to decrease the number of HVAC units in the other flat area, this will enable us to double the size of solar panels over in that area. When I first stood up here, it was, the big, over a year ago, there was a lot of concern over the big box theory, the thought of, and of course, we in the conventional grocery industry, when we think of big box, we think of things like Walmart, but which is 200,000 square feet. There may be some misconceptions which I want to clarify. This is one of our newest suburban stores in Pasadena. Some of you may have seen it at Colorado and San Gabriel. You can see the San Bernardino Mountains in the background. This is a mainland prototype store. Here's another overhead of the store print. It is the footprint. It's 60,500 square feet and is a prototype size you might see anywhere in North America. This represents the sum total of square footage of your 2 existing stores which serve Catalina. And here's a comparison of what we propose to build. 1/3 the size of a prototype store, a unique facility designed for a unique audience. It is not a big box replica of what we are on the mainland. I want to end my presentation with once again the emphasis on our location. Highlighted in blue is our proposed location. It is a couple blocks off the beach, but still not so far away that it cannot take advantage of the tourist traffic. Highlighted in yellow, behind City Hall, the maintenance yard, that has been suggested as a close alternative. I can assure you that not only would no grocery store locate on this site, but neither would any other retailer in Avalon. Our dependency on the tourist dollar would make this site decision retail suicide. I also want to make note of the existing, which highlights there, the existing approved truck route through Avalon as they appear here in orange. If we were to move up island, that truck route would now extend, as I have illustrated here in yellow. We can only imagine the whole new can of worms that would be opened up by the residents of Clarissa and Sumner as they face the possibility of the island delivery company shifting gears to get up and down the hill to service the property as the new truck route was expanded. One of the things that came to light today, by the way, I got an email from an individual who couldn't be here because it was his birthday, that runs the Catalina Beverage Company, and I apologize, I've not met this individual. But he mentioned one thing that I was not aware of, and that is that Catalina Beverage delivers to both of our stores, unlike the freight company, which only delivers to the one. And you know, he was quite pleased by the fact that if we were to locate to a single facility, it would cut his truck deliveries in half or less than half. And when I say less than half, I asked him that question. I said, why less than half? And he said, because now with your larger facility and larger storage facilities within that, we would be able to completely fill our trucks and not have to come with half loads and then have to wait till they're put onto the shelf and then bring other product. Well, in closing, we've been diligently working to replace our antiquated stores in Avalon for over 7 years. My predecessors in the Vaughn's Company for at least a decade before that, because it is something that Catalina needs for the long term, and it has always been the right thing to do. And I wear my company's interests on my sleeve. We acknowledge openly that building a new store is also in the best interest of our company and of our employees. Who could argue that it's not in everyone's best interest when considering the alternative that we come back to, which would be, of course, business as usual as more years go by. As I say this, we would ask the council to examine the interests of each of your constituents that come up to the podium today and speak both in favor and against the project. It is both obvious and proven by petition that the vast majority of residents and visitors are in favor of the project, and by show of red here tonight. There are also certainly legitimate concerns which we believe over the past year of planning this project we've addressed. But there's also a small faction of individuals under the veil of some seemingly altruistic motive which truly have their own personal interests at the core. You and the residents of Catalina are a small knit family, and I trust you can see behind such a curtain to reveal these motivations. This is not only the only site that works for our company, but it is a great site. What we would call in the industry a bullseye location. We hope that you agree and will listen to the majority of your constituents that you represent. I appreciate all the time and effort expended by the groups and residents that have supported this project from the beginning. The city staff that guided us through the process and the planning commission that provided us input that kept taking us back to the drawing board before finally, when we had it right, giving us their support. And thank each of you and other members of the City Council who have been involved behind the scenes throughout the entire process, following the progress and accepting our invitations to meet to get updates and provide unbiased input in your efforts to represent your constituents. Lastly, most importantly, we thank our residents of Catalina and our employees that have supported Vaughn's for so many years, enabling us to serve this community as best we could with the facilities at our disposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. Questions from the council? Mr. Hernandez. Okay. Mr. Sampson?
I'd like to know how long this proposed project will take.
To build?
Yeah, to build.
Okay.
Approximately 10 months from the date we start hammering nails.
Okay. What is the projected lifespan of the building?
60 years.
Okay.
60 years, actually, probably 60 years is what we use in our feasibility analysis to determine, you know, the lifespan from an economic perspective. And it has to have, and so that's why when we look at the size of the store, we have to think in terms of the future, is it adequate? Hope that answers it.
Okay, that's all the questions I have just for right now.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will now hear from the appellant, Michelle Black, will be representing him.
Good evening, council members. Michelle Black, Chadden Brown and Carstens, on behalf of the Catalina Eucalyptus Sumner Alliance, CESA. We're the nefarious neighbors. I just want to start with one misconception about CESA. CESA is not against a new or improved Vons store. We have to grocery shop here too. I was probably in that store 10 times last week. CESA is, however, against a Vons store that will destroy the character of the flats and that is more appropriate on the mainland than in Avalon. In order to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, the city prepared a mitigated negative declaration, an MND. What an MND means is that the project either will not have any significant environmental impacts or that any impacts the project might have been fully mitigated. Anytime a project may have a significant environmental impact that has not been eliminated by mitigation measures, a larger environmental document, an EIR, is required, and this is where we find ourselves tonight. Although we appreciate the revisions that have been made to the MND since its original release, the MND still fails to acknowledge, analyze, and mitigate real impacts related to aesthetics, construction noise, traffic, and parking. At 34 feet high, the proposed store would block treasured public views of the mountains from Catalina and Sumner Avenues. CEQA requires that significant impacts to public views be analyzed and mitigated, but the MND ignores the public views from these two heavily traveled streets. They say, hey, walk a couple feet away, it'll be fine. But that impact is still there. The MND also fails to acknowledge the canyon effect that will be produced by the proposed store's 20-foot high wall along Catalina Avenue. I guess some parts are 18 feet high, but you get the idea. The trellised plants will not eliminate this wall, and we don't have that with the Metropole store or at Little Vons. The story pole placement, and actually one of the pictures that was up on the PowerPoint, indicate that the project would remove trees at the golf gardens. That seems to be an unmitigated aesthetic impact. With regard to noise, the MND claims that construction noise impacts will be fully mitigated by prohibiting construction on Sundays and before 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday. But the severity of a noise impact depends on the receptors of that noise. The project site is surrounded by sensitive receptors. We have homes, hotels, vacation rentals. Construction at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, especially if it's going on for 10 months, I mean, if we start September 1, we're definitely going to get into next summer. That'll certainly have significant impacts. Further, the MND fails to account for the tourism-dependent nature of Avalon. In order to protect these vital Avalon businesses and the year-round residents who live among them, construction shouldn't be allowed until later on Saturdays. Or better yet, construction activity should be limited to the off-season after the conclusion of Jazz Tracks. I'll let others touch on traffic and the proposed one-hour parking, which are pretty big issues for people who live in the area. But I would like to note that there has been no construction staging plan provided. There's a condition that says one has to be provided later, but since that hasn't been done yet, there's been no analysis of the construction impacts, what will happen with staging. And with these impacts, the city cannot make the required site plan findings that the project will not have permanent adverse impacts on neighboring property, or that the project is arranged to avoid traffic congestion. We've all seen Beacon and Sumner at busy times. If anyone was out there last Saturday or Monday with the cruise ship, when you've got everyone in the rental carts, it's a disaster. CESA wants a better grocery shopping experience, just like everyone else, but we want Vons to be a good neighbor and one that fits into the existing vibrant neighborhood. There's no reason a 23,000 square foot two-story store is needed for 4,000 people. I don't have a two-story grocery store in Santa Monica. Otherwise, a full EIR is required that will assess alternatives to this project, to its size and its location, and that will provide the city's planning commission, city council, and residents with all of the information needed to properly evaluate this project. CEQA requires no less. I also have a question about special condition number 3. It says, prior to the commencement of construction at the project site, the applicant shall process or cause to be processed a parcel map that shall include land for the Vons store, yada yada, such that the parcel that includes the Vons store shall have a maximum lot coverage of 80% of this gross lot area. So my question is, at this point, is the project not in compliance with the 80% lot coverage limitation? That's something that's going to be taken care of after approval. I'm a bit confused there. But I would like to now turn over the microphone to Pam Albers and Kathleen Carlisle Hill.
Pam Albers, 217 Colley del Sol. I have a question initially. There's a comment from the planning staff that efforts to question the revised mitigated NEC are not considered timely, and I'm assuming then that you do not believe that Center for Biological Diversity applies in these situations, which of course is pending before the Supreme Court with a similar kind of question about the extent to which the public can comment on environmental documents up to and including the time that they are considered by the deciding body. Because I would suggest that it's somewhat unfair, knowing that this was set for an August 4th hearing, to send out a revised mitigated NEC in March and then tell people, oh, no, you had to comment within the 2-week period. So I'll just leave that for the record, and I'm assuming the lawyers will deal with that question. I live above the museum project, and I think it's a good example of what happens when, as in this situation, things are left to be decided later. I watch people now for 22 months carry their suitcases on the street in a dangerous situation, and I went back and I looked at the museum conditions of approval, and guess what? It said they were going to submit a staging plan and that it would be approved by someone. I don't know who approved it, but clearly it's not working very well, and you've got another situation here that's exactly that kind of situation. You also have a situation where you don't know how big the lot is, and I guess it's a moving target as to how big the store is. The staff report says 23,000 square feet. Mr. Bratton says it's 20,000 square feet. Exactly how big is this project? But most importantly, what I wanted to say is that in all of the years that I've attended or watched or participated in planning commission meetings, particularly, and also appeals, it's been the way of Avalon that when neighbors have a concern, legitimate concerns, and voice them, that we work to find some middle ground. A recent example is the Zane Grey Hotel. Dave Thompson voiced some legitimate concerns. The property owner worked with him, and they came up with something that was better. The citizens who own homes in the flats and those of us who are concerned about the fact that there is not enough parking for this property have raised consistent questions about why does it have to be 2.5 times bigger than what we have now to serve our needs. And no one's answered that question. That number is fixed. We've been told it cannot be changed. And I feel that that's a mistake for the long term. It's not as if people aren't buying groceries because they're not in the store. Yes, it would be nice to have a new store and have more room, but how much room is enough? And so I just ask you to really consider the way that Avalon has been up until now, and use your authority to look at the size, look at the parking and the amount of parking. Consider the fact that restriping the 200 block of Sumner and Catalina is going to have significant traffic impacts that were not studied as part of the traffic study. And that's a CEQA impact too. And then finally, all of this, if it's for long-term growth, that needs to be considered as part of the environmental impact. It's not just this store. It's the projects that have come before it and the projects which we know are in the pipeline now that are also going to generate additional impacts and affect our infrastructure and affect the quality of life in Avalon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen Carlisle, 311 East Whitley, 232 Catalina, the old turnaround. Chelsea's my PowerPoint because you guys wouldn't let me do a PowerPoint, so I'm going to have her help me hold some stuff. All right, so first I'm going to give each
Kathleen, if I could, I mean, if you have something on a flash drive, there's
I
no.
don't now.
Okay, well, there.
I was told in an email I couldn't do a PowerPoint. I have the email.
Okay.
No, me.
Okay. Hold on, we have to check. Okay. The fact that we're here tonight discussing this gives me hope. It's been so discouraging the past few months to have leaders in our community dehumanizing those of us who are looking for solutions and who have been asking Vons to put forth a more reasonable plan that does not impact the immediate neighborhood as much as this plan does. They say we're all complaining and we're just trying to stop the project. I heard things last time that we're making up new things each time. I'm bringing the same things I brought the first time I heard about this. And when Bratton sits here, Mr. Bratton shows us pictures and says, you guys didn't like this, so we looked at this plan. You didn't like this, so we looked at this plan. I don't know who you is because I never got any say on any of those plans. People say that it should be approved because no variants are asked for. Well, land use issues this big with this much potential impact need to be, quote, according to the law, considered on the basis of the suitability for the site, for the particular use or development intended, and be so arranged as to avoid traffic congestion and prevent adverse effects on the neighboring properties. This is in your staff report Site Plan B. Okay, so yes, this is zone commercial, but this type of commercial usage, is it appropriate for this location? I saw some amazing plans that a designer worked up for the Island Company with Vons in different locations. And the great thing about them is they recognized that residential was more appropriate here. They put Vons in different locations, once behind the laundry, once down by Vons Express, a couple of times down by Vons Express, and they recognized that this was more appropriate for residential. So maybe commercial use is okay here, but would we let a Chi-Chi Club type atmosphere be here? Vons is the most industrial thing in Avalon right now. It is a 24/7 operation with trucks rolling up as late as 11:15. I know they've said at meetings they don't come that late, but I live above there and I hear them. They roll up at 6:15 on Tuesday mornings. The trash trucks roll up early. So one of the problems with the Planning Commission's approval process, because I know people are going to get up here tonight and say, the Planning Commission approved this. Well, they did not fully evaluate this project before they passed it on. All they really did is pass it on, considering that two of the things that they did talk about and decide, one that deliveries needed to be restricted to certain hours, and one that sharpened carts needed to be contained, those aren't even conditions anymore in this new report that I can find, unless I'm just not finding them. They appear to have vanished from the staff report conditions of approval list. When one of the commissioners recognized that there were many elements of this project where people had asked to be addressed, he attempted to encourage the commission to take them one by one. They barely got through an attempt at discussing the one-way loading bay and delivery times when the commissioner was shut down by the city attorney, who basically cut him off and told him, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hewitt, but Mr. Bratton wanted an answer to this plan this way tonight. Why are all the people that want a Vons so adamant that it be 23,000 square feet? Why are they fighting for that? Why aren't they fighting with us for something more reasonable that has enough parking, for not letting Vons change the 200 block of Catalina and Sumner into 1 hour parking, for a one-way loading bay, for inclusionary housing. Housing is such a huge issue on Catalina for so many people. I can't believe people are willing to just blanket approve this project and not address inclusionary housing. There was something very confusing in the staff report I just read saying something about the employees couldn't be more than they were in the last year before this opens. I don't even understand it. Does that mean Vons could up their employees in the 2 existing stores right before they open this so that they can then, I didn't even understand it. So for a better reconciliation, why aren't people asking for a better reconciliation of the water allotment? And for things that will help your fellow citizens that live in the area not be so impacted, like better noise abatement, a smaller building, a lower roof line, limited delivery times, and more parking. If this 2 stores combined are 10,000 square feet, wouldn't a single store that's 15,000 square feet be adequate enough for what we really need? We just need better quality food and a cleaner store. Every alternative plan that was put forth by Catalyst Inc., which the Island Company says Catalyst did it. Obviously, Catalyst didn't do it on their own, but they are professional urban designers, and they have a lot of experience in this period. All their plans called for 19,000 square feet for Vons, 19,098 to be specific. And because the city is letting this project go through without an MND that is legitimate, for instance, the parking, the mitigation for parking is they'll put up a sign that says lot full, and people will learn to shop when it's not busy. Or they'll go to park, they'll rezone, restripe the curbs to 1 hour parking, and people can park in the neighborhood. You know, just like we do now at Vaughn's, if we can't find parking, we loop down by the front, and we loop back up, and we go up to the Pink Hotel, and then we loop back down by the front, and we wait till a spot opens up. You don't think people are gonna do that? You can't mitigate one thing by making a huge impact on the parking, and then say there's no problem, there's no significant impacts. So by approving this mitigated negative deck, you don't have to do an EIR. The great thing about an EIR is that it makes the developer show alternative sites. Everybody would have seen alternatives. They have some great insight in the ones they put in. They didn't choose them for whatever reasons. Economics probably. It looked like this one said it costs less, but one of the plans hides the stores on 3 sides and provides 108 parking spaces. So these other plans were rejected for whatever reasons, but it still doesn't negate that the professional evaluations by this urban designer made about our town. We deserve a better design, and the neighbors and the people of Avalon deserve better. So I just ask you, if you are going to approve Vaughn's at this site, then please look at each of the following items and make conditions on this approval that will help the neighbors and the community. Whether you want to look out for our best interests or not, we are depending on you. The people that live adjacent to this site will be most affected, and their concerns should carry weight. Anybody who will drive through the intersection at Beacon and Sumner or park on Catalina and Sumner to go downtown will be adversely affected. The ones that don't see the traffic problem now, once it's built, they will, and the pitchforks are going to be coming for whoever is in office at that time to fix it. It may mean traffic lights, it may mean claiming eminent domain for the good of the town and opening up 3rd Street. This is the worst of the 4 alternative locations that were rejected by SEI Company and Vaughn's for whatever reasons. So I just ask you that you have the list in front of you. If you would please look at aesthetics and the size. The professional urban designers said that this is a large format building. They said it's a large format retail box. They say it will increase the impact on the neighborhood, being that, and they say in their study, they say Catalina Avenue is predominantly residential. So this was their evaluation of our town. I believe this substantially degrades the existing visual character and adversely affects the scenic views. I don't think you can put less than significant on that sequel report for aesthetics. Impact on property values. Per Catalyst, the professionals specializing in urban design, they said it has a potential negative impact to residential property values adjacent to Vaughn's. So in your staff report, it says if the city discovers material facts that were not disclosed by the applicant, they can deny the permit. Not saying that you knew that some professional said that putting a store at this site could cause serious impacts on the adjacent property values. I think that's withholding information. Parking. Oh, that was...
No.
No.
Sorry, John. Parking. Vaughn's must provide enough for the present and the future need. It is not okay to change the 200 and 200 blocks to 1 hour parking. This will be an enormous impact on the residents that live there, and it will be a domino effect on the next street and the next street. There were 88 carts per hour at a peak time, 57 per hour average arriving at Vaughn's. So now you're going to add more people to that site that maybe would have only come from the north side of town and stopped at Vaughn's, where it is on Metropole. Now they're going to be coming all the way to Sumner and Beacon. Traffic. Beacon and Sumner are one of the busiest corners. My father, 98-year-old almost tomorrow, next day, he went out and stood there for 20 minutes to count cars. He's a good counter. He's got a good brain. So he counted in May 71 in 20 minutes, 142 in June, in July 118, and July 9th at 12:40 p.m., 284 vehicles going through that intersection. You don't think adding a Vaughn's to that site doesn't need some sort of better traffic study? There will be more people coming because there's a Vaughn's there, and when they build more housing up the canyon, there will be more people in town. Also, I have an issue with, I don't know if you guys can see this, But nobody ever believes me when I say you're going to have to either put in a traffic light or 7-way stop. The existing intersection now is a funny jog 4-way stop. But everybody has to stop and kind of look around and wait and turn down to Beacon. When you add a driveway coming out of Vaughn's, you create a 4-way stop right here. That has to be a 4-way stop. You can't just eliminate one of those. Now you have people coming out of here, and they might go this way or they might go this way. So if you don't put a stop sign right here, if you don't add a stop sign in front of Judy Stan's house after you come around Beacon, what are those people supposed to do? Just keep going? And then they were going to eliminate this stop sign right here, number 5. So they supposedly went down there. So what, are these people just supposed to guess when they can turn right or left? When they did not have a stop sign here at number 5, I was hit on a motorcycle right here because somebody took the corner too fast and came on to Beacon way over here and hit me. That stop sign was put there because of me. So I can give you a copy of that. Delivery times, the next one on your list, was part of the conditions and now it's gone. The noise is similar to construction site, therefore it should be limited. And nobody even took into account trash trucks. Do you know the trash trucks roll up at 7:15 to the Vaughn's currently? And they're there for 10 to 20 minutes lifting and backing up and moving the things and lifting them again and the hydraulics going. It is a noisy venture. From what I can tell, the trash trucks do not go into a loading bay to unload Vaughn's trash. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong because it's hard to read the plans. But if they are doing that in the street, that should not be allowed in hours that would hurt people. Inclusionary housing, I think it's wrong to transfer the burden to vacated properties. I think you're going to just be kicking the can down the road. And let's see, what was the last one on my list? Do I have the main list? All right, water. And I didn't write something about water. You find it? And just for clarification, the staff report says something about the height being 30 feet. I have the height at 34 feet because there's the floodplain elevation plus the 30 feet. Has that changed? Or is it 34 feet?
That's exactly what I said was in my presentation.
Okay. So again, you showed pictures of the old Turner Inn and said the heights are similar. The old Turner Inn is not even 30 feet tall, and it's definitely not 40 feet wide. We saw the story poles up there. I wish they were still there. This building is huge. It completely blocks any character scenic view. When you walk in the flats, it's wonderful to walk through there. You feel all open. You can see the hillsides on either side, and now it's just wiped out. So I think that's it.
Not for these two guys.
These are the appellants. So.
Yeah, not for the applicant, the appellant. Okay, now we're going to go to the general public. You will be limited to 3 minutes for this, and if you are going to say something, make sure it's something new we haven't already heard. Or if you just want to state your in favor of or against the project, state that just to kind of move it along. So, Mr. Harvey, you have the list.
I do, Mayor Pro Tem, and just forgive me as we go through the list. I'm sure I'm going to say people's names incorrectly, even people that I know. Forgive me. I understand that some people may be sitting outside, so it may take a while for them to come up here.
Are we on a tape delay?
A little bit. And then further, there may be additional people that want to sign up as we go. Okay, so we're going to go in the order in which people signed up. The first individual on the list is Judy Hibbs.
Oh, and I think we should clarify that this is your 3 minutes, and this is your 3 minutes. You don't get 3 minutes now, 3 minutes later, and 3 minutes. So this is 3 minutes. It's, you know, one shot. So
okay,
make it good.
Hi, I'm Judy Hibbs. I live at 157A Crescent Avenue, and I survived the building of the New Island Spa. Why can't we have a new, spacious, energy-efficient Vaughn's store? I ask the council to please ignore this negative rhetoric and the sky is falling attitude, the misleading information. Vaughn's is working with us, as you can see from their evolving plan. Growth is change, and change is growth. For those who say they want to keep Avalon quaint, they want to save it for future generations, that ship has sailed. There's a lot of new building going on. Some of the absentee owners, part-time landlords, and mainland spokespersons are shopping at Trader Joe's and Whole Foods and bringing it with them to Avalon, while those of us who live here full-time couldn't get a piece of chicken in the last 3 days at the store because there's nowhere to store it. Trader Joe's and Whole Foods is wonderful when you live on the mainland, but we have to buy a boat ticket and go over and get those products right now and bring them back here. I want my grandkids to have options. I am thinking of future generations when I asked for this new store. Move it, not an option. That's been proven, and any other discussion on that point is ridiculous. The new store being too large, let's learn from the mistakes of some other recent building projects. The bathrooms at Descanso Beach have been rebuilt twice because they were inadequate. The kitchen at the Blue Water isn't really big enough for all of the people that want to eat there at one time. Let's go big. Let's anticipate how we're growing. Let's have a store that works for us now, and if it's too spacious, it will be such a blessing to have something that's actually oversized in Avalon that we can enjoy and our visitors can appreciate, rather than what we've all experienced in the last several weeks in our present store. Vaughn's has been decaying for decades. I've been here for 43 years. I've owned a home. I've raised my family here. My husband works at the store. Manager Mike Thomas and 50 other people are laboring daily to ferry materials back and forth between the two buildings, to deal with a failing physical plant, to handle cramped or non-existent storage, to just look at an old and failing building. I'm asking the council members to vote representative of your constituents. See red, we want the new store. Know that an overwhelming majority of people want this store. They want it on Beacon between Sumner and Catalina, and I'm asking you to vote yes.
Thank you. Next on our list.
And I think it'd be appropriate to save the applause to the end of all the presentations so that we can.
Okay, next on the list is Kevin Strege.
Kevin Strige, 129 Olive. Just to expound a little upon Judy's deal, I schlepped groceries from Whole Foods just yesterday, and I told Angela, I'm done. I can't do this forever. But you know what? I think what we have to realize that by putting a new store in here, it helps the people that can't make that trip. Think about how many people don't have the time nor the money to go over to Whole Foods once or twice a week, or once every other week. Anyway, those are the people that get hurt here when we don't have a decent store in town. The other is, think of how many people that you know now have dietary concerns, be it gluten-free, be it whatever, that they almost have to take that trip over town because we can't meet their needs here. So that's another deal. And the other thing is, let's think about this. Proper nutrition for our children and the adults of the community is difficult without fresh and plentiful alternatives to our food supplies. So all of this kind of combines, I think, to facilitate that we do need a new facility. Second point, you guys have a difficult position. I'd hate to be in your position right now because no matter how you vote, you're never going to please everybody. It's just not going to happen. So, but we have to remember both the Planning Commission and the city staff supported the project through their professional review and approvals. To undermine their expertise really goes in the face of decision-making process you have asked them to undertake in their positions. You guys put these people into these positions and you asked them to make informed decisions, and they did that. And they came back to you, both staff and the Planning Commission. So I ask you to respect that. So it's time to make the decision to move on. We don't want to see you kick this down the road again. It's time to make a decision one way or the other. I think you guys are tired of it, and the town is tired of it. So, and as Judy said, we all are your constituents. Proper representation should be based upon what is doing best for the most involved. I feel tonight's turnout is a good indication of the majority's wish for a new Vons on Beacon. Thank you very much.
Mr. Harvey.
Cindy Brennahan? I'm sorry.
In the hole.
Read a few names at a time.
Jerry Dunn is next.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not a baseball
He's not a baseball fan, obviously.
I'm a cyclist and a runner. I'm like, what is he talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and I won't repeat everything that Kathleen said, although I do agree with everything that she said. I also have a question regarding the loading dock, since you mentioned that there was like a garage door that was going to open and the delivery truck was going to go in. Once the truck is in and it's all tucked in, will the door then close behind it for unloading? I do have a question about that. It's safe to say that no one is against a nice, new, larger, modern grocery store. I also bring groceries over from not whole paycheck because I can't afford to shop there. But I do bring groceries over myself when I come over. It's just that way I know I'm getting what I want. But the downside is the actual mass and size of the building, surrounded on 3 sides by residential. The current design looks out of place for Avalon, in my opinion. This island is a gem that has been carefully kept in its unique small town California coastal feel. It's not just the vocal few that will be affected. This large store is currently being proposed will dominate the view as you look across town towards the bay. Currently, the parking situation on the flats is at best a challenge, a big challenge. It's okay when people come down and park there for the day to go to work. Cars aren't moving every few minutes, every hour, whatever the parking is. It really is a challenge. Very few, if any, of the homes on the flats have garages. Where are they supposed to park? Will there be special stickers for residents? 1 hour parking will give the street downtown to Vons to serve as the parking lot that they should have provided in the first place. It's not likely that the location will change, but we don't have to give away the character of the town in the process. The downtown should not exist for the convenience of a supermarket, one store dominating the entire business in town. The saddest part of all of this, and we were talking about this outside, is what it has done to this town and the residents, pitting neighbors against neighbors, friends against friends, and businesses against businesses. It could have been a unifying issue all the way around. We could have all worked together for the long-term betterment of our community. Unfortunately, that's not how this went. The bulls I referred to earlier feels like it's on the back of everybody who opposes this new store. I hope when there's a decision finally made that we will be able to go back to being friends, neighbors, fellow business owners, and strive to continue to have the best interests of Avalon in our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry
Okay,
Dunn.
Jerry Dunn, and then after that, John Council.
Jerry Dunn, 133 Upper Terrace. As a City of Avalon Planning Commissioner, I take that position seriously, but I also take people's rights, property rights seriously. When a property owner comes to the Planning Commission, they come to the Planning Commission with a project that fits within the perimeters of what's allowed, fits within the code, fits within the zoning. It isn't a rubber stamp, and these people have gone to the extreme to convince the Planning Commission, and I believe the staff, that this project fits within the perimeters of that, and that's the job that we were given to uphold. I think that when that the public has the right to appeal that decision, and they've done that. But now all of those questions have been mitigated, and it's now your job to withhold or to uphold the decision of the Planning Commission and the planner. I'm hoping that you can do that and vote yes on this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Council, then Ralph Morrow.
Good evening, John Council, 352 Catalina. I live about a block away from the proposed new project, and I am a resident that lives within a block, and I am for the new store. I am a person who is sensitive to the concerns of the people who also live in the neighborhood that have some issues with the store. I don't think anybody in town really is promoting an us versus them kind of atmosphere, and some people have stated that this is what it's turned into. This is a small community. We're all neighbors. We all know each other, and I think on maybe another level, we're all sort of family members in this community. So we all see each other all the time. We all understand each other's concerns and issues. But I think everyone here realizes that this town is in need of a new store. I mean, I think that everyone can agree on that. And you could hand me 100 darts right now, and I could take them and throw them over my shoulder at the map that's sitting on the wall behind me, and it could hit anywhere with 100 different darts, and you would find a contingent in town that would have complaints or issues with every single spot. So it's not an issue of changing locations of a proposed project, because no matter where you put it, there will always be someone who doesn't like it. That's just the truth. And so you're going to have people that are upset or complaining about it. You should expect that. That's going to happen in this town, because there's never going to be an ideal location where no one will be upset. You change it to another spot and you'll have another 20 people up here saying why they don't like it. And you change it to another location, you'll get another 20 people doing the same thing. So, you've got to take that into consideration. I keep hearing over and over, why so large? Well, in my way of thinking, we need to plan for the next 50, 60 years for this town. And if we build something that's maybe undersized, and then 15 years from now somebody approaches us and says, we really didn't build the store as large as we needed, and now we need to have maybe an addition to it. Then we're going to meet those kind of issues. So the store is planned to serve the community for the next 50, 60 years. And that's the way we should be looking at this. So it's something to consider. Anyway, I would just implore you guys to just think of some of those things. And I know you've got a difficult choice to make tonight, but I think that if you put your hearts in it and know what's best for the community, and you see the people here representing this community, we are all your constituents. So please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Ralph Morrow, then Bob Kennedy.
Mr. Morrow.
Okay. Here I am for 3 minutes. My name is Ralph Morrow. I was elected mayor 4 times in the last 20 years, and I do support this market. My main issue, or the thing that really bothers me, is the fact that we have some commitments from Vons, but Vons isn't there anymore. It's Albertsons, right? And what I was concerned about is, with all this going on, the new company might be looking at us saying, who the heck are these people? We are going to be investing $20 million in a market, and they're fighting us. So we could have somebody in upper management of Albertsons to say, you know what, the heck with it, let's pull out. That's scary. And that has always concerned me, is that fact. Now, maybe the city council has some insight. I do know that there were some commitments from Vons saying that they're going to stick around. I've just been concerned about the other. At one point in time, I developed my own house. We've got this building over on Metropole that about 26 years ago, I was standing right here in front of the city council, and because I had one person who was against my building, didn't like it. And so I was asking for a foot for the peak of the roof and a couple of little minor things. But on a 4-1 vote, I lost. And I walked out of that room pretty upset. And that one person that decided that he didn't like it cost me about $50,000 in a year of waiting, delay on my project. Today, if you go down Metropole past the church, you'll see a white building. That's the building that they said no. That what we're doing tonight is we're going to have a vote, and the vote is going to be whether we do it or not, whether we like it or not. And what I'm concerned about is that if we turn it down, it's not going to be the end of the world, okay? Because, like in my situation, they turned it down, the city council turned it down, and we made 2 minor changes. Nobody could go in and be against my building anymore. So we were able to build it. Now, the other thing about so many square feet under the roof and it's too big and all that, when you're going to make a decision to do a building in Avalon, you're going to build every single square inch, put it under the roof that you can, because you get one shot and you're all limited.
Thank you.
So please, and one more thing.
No, you're out of time.
One more thing.
You're out of time.
The VFW unanimously voted to support Vaughn's employees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Bob Kennedy, followed by Pat Chrysler.
Bob Kennedy.
Yep.
This is mayors, and mayors.
This is awesome. I paid very close attention to this item as it's come up before the Planning Commission. We've debated water. I came here 18 months ago and suggested to the council that water would be your biggest challenge, not regarding bonds. Don't allow water to hold this community and the visitors hostage as it pertains to this project. Take that on another venue. You guys have the ability tonight to allow this to be one of your legacies. Something that you go out on high marks with, okay? Don't let it go the other way. I would expect a 3-0 vote in support of this project. I think this is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Chrysler, followed by Carlos Clubillo.
I just wonder if there are any more mayors in the audience.
My name is Pat Chrysler, and our home is at 114 Hill Street.
Please.
And we have been in that house since the 1960s. And our number one, and I mean number one dream for the island has always been to have the new Vaughns. And so, of course, we are for this. But I would like to tell you one reason this affects our family specifically. I have a multi-disabled child, and he is on special diet. And we have to go over to the mainland at least once a week to get his food because it's not available here. And I know the people at Vaughn's, and I have talked to them, and they can't supply the things he needs because they order things based on what I would call popularity. In other words, they have to bring in what sells the greatest. And that I understand because they have such limited space. In a vinyl store, that's what I would do too. So it's not Vaughn's fault. But you have a chance to change this for many of us. There's a lot of us here that are on special diets. There are people that are getting older that are having to go on special diets. They have to go to the mainland or send somebody to the mainland to get these things now because we're not a majority and the things we need are not going to add up to the majority, but we still have a right to have them. So when I'm asking you, I got very upset when, quote, the opposition said we don't need a bigger store. We certainly do need a bigger store. That's why we can't get the things we need here. Okay? So do we get a bigger store? We have a bigger choice of products. And then some of the products that I need will start coming. Whether there'll be enough, I don't know. But it certainly can't be any worse than it is now. Now, I think it's very unfair because of where they live that they want to keep me and similar people, my son, from having the products we need. I think that's very selfish. They say they're worstly affected. No. At the moment, I'm worstly affected. When the store moves to where they are, I will be worstly affected because I can't walk anymore. I live up on the hill, and it'll be too far to walk to Vaughn's, so now I will have to take my car there, okay? So I'm going to be worstly affected by the move. I'm not going to be better off by the move. And when I looked at the chart of the places, there's a lot more homes closer to where it's going to move than there are now. It's surrounded by businesses now. It's not convenient for people now from their homes. So that's not a true fact. It's not, they're not going to be worsely affected. Lots of the rest of us may be, okay? So please, will you please take into consideration, we need a bigger Vons. And if it means that they get a roof style or a siding that they don't like, I'm very sorry.
Thank you,
But
ma'am.
I think our health is more important.
Thank you.
Carlos Cabillo, followed by Chris Wilhelm. Sir Carlos Cabillo.
Carlos, he was here.
He's maybe in the back.
He's in the back right there?
Outside.
Right there.
Sorry if I'm pronouncing your last name incorrectly.
Carlos Cubillo, 319 Wheatley, resident for 40-some years. And I want to thank you for being here. I know that when you were elected to do a job like we're doing right now, you never had in mind that you were going to have these kind of situations. This is a community thing, and it break us or it make us, to all of us. We went through fire that almost wiped us out, and we've been living and we've been working together in events like for example, when we have the Booster Club, we all pitch in and we did something to have a pool for the community. Never materialized. I don't know what happened. Now we're talking about a topic that is very important to everybody. You were elected for representing more than 40,000 people in Avalon. And right now, the opposition, I'm afraid to say that it is 3% or less than that. If you take that, it's going to be 150 people, 200, make it 250. But the truth of the matter is that we need a store. Not because I work there. I've been more than happy to provide services for everybody. And at the end of this meeting, I want to thank you guys for doing the best that you can. And with all the respect to all the opposition, and with all my heart, thanking everybody that supports the project, because we need it. As a worker, it's really tough. We work 4 times before we put the stuff in the shelf for the community. I say 4,000 plus members, residents, plus the thousands of visitors that we wanted to come and spend some money to make us better in this town. The size of the store, why bigger? Because in the 1940s, 1943, we were probably 1,000 residents. Right now we're 40 plus, 4,000 plus the visitors. And we try to accommodate all the needs for everybody. I want to thank you for what you're doing. Be conscious that you're going to hurt a lot of people if you don't pass it. Not myself. Thank God I'm close to retirement. But the thing is that you're representing all the community. And that's important. That's a big job. Thank you guys for your attention and your decision, whichever it is. I want to thank you guys. Make sure that I'm your friend with a different opinion. And
thank you, Carlos.
Happy to serve you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Chris Wilhelm, followed by Janice Hall.
Jeez. Sharing section back there.
Chris Wilhelm, Catalina Island Company, 150 Metropole. We also appreciate the process that the community and the Planning Council and now the City Council, Planning Commission and City Council have gone through to bring us to this point. I do want to respond to the comments and plans that were distributed last week by someone representing the CISA group apparently, and also referred to earlier tonight as well. The note included many false statements that I feel compelled to correct, particularly given that that note made representations about me personally. First, the note from CISA said that the Island Company has said that this is the only site available and that we have somehow kept the community in the dark about the planning process. This is not true. What we have said consistently is that this is the the best site and the only site that works for both Vaughn's and the Island Company. As you heard Mr. Bratton say earlier tonight, from Vaughn's perspective, this is the best possible site for them, and even from just a pure retailing standpoint, the best location from their perspective. But this is not the first time that this conversation has been had in this community. So this has not been something where the public's been kept in the dark. In fact, this conversation has been part of the public dialogue for over 50 years. Back in the early 1960s, Safeway originally came to the community with a proposal at the Tour Plaza site for a mixed-use project anchored by a new, larger Safeway store. In 1989, the company's 15-year plan included a grocery store in the same site that is proposed to you tonight. And in 2001, Vaughn's again came to the community with a mixed-use idea anchored by a new, larger Vaughn's store in the same location that is proposed to you tonight. The Islander reported on that proposal in a story in July 2001. They quoted several representatives of the Island Company. It was part of a very public dialogue about this same location for a new, larger grocery store. And more recently, in 2013 through 2014, over the last 2 years, the Island Company held outreach meetings in the arcade about plans that we have, ideas that we have for future projects, including a Vaughn's at this location. And the feedback that we received, not just those nights, but also in conversations with planning commissioners, with other leaders of the community, was overwhelmingly positive, as I think it has been in the community over the last few months, and it has, as it's been demonstrated tonight. Members of the Vaughn's organization, as Mr. Bratton mentioned, have talked to many, many people about this during the process. It has been a very typical process, and we commend Vaughn's and the community for going back and forth and talking about different options.
Thank you.
So we respect
Thank you, Mr.
the
Wellman.
right for people to disagree. We just prefer that people use facts when they do it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Janice Hall, followed by Patricia McCormick.
Janie Hall, 334 Clarissa. My family has been in continuous residency in Avalon since 1892. And over this period, we've seen many changes, some more healthy than others, I would say. But in the 75 years of the Vaughn's Safeway organization, I don't think we've ever seen any changes. That store has not had maintenance. It has not had, I think it's got 2 new cases of organic drinks. The meat department is pathetic. The groceries are the produce is pathetic. And I'm not sure this is all a space issue. As Andrea brought up at one meeting, the only time we got decent produce was when the trucks were mixed up from Newport Beach, and we got their produce. So we are seen as a third-tier ethnic market, and I don't see that that is necessarily going to change with the pretty pictures and the wide streets and the shiny fruit. That's somewhere else. And the space issue was also relieved somewhat by the Vaughn's Express. But have we looked at the Vaughn's Express to see anything in the way of healthy food? I mean, you're calling it a deli, and I grant you the sandwiches are good, and I do like the wine selection. But you've got aisles of Frankenfood. You've got high fructose corn syrup in one entire aisle. And then the one time you had a real food was in a little fresh fruit basket, and that's been replaced by a Coke machine. So I'm not sure what control anybody is going to have over what the actual contents of the store is going to be. I think we have in our minds that it's just going to turn into some combination of Sprouts and Whole Foods and so forth. But, you know, we have yet to see any examples of that so far in the 70 years that this corporation has been here. Thank you very much. It's a tumultuous time, and I don't envy your position at all, but thanks for hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Hall.
Patricia McCormick, followed by Jim Lutjohan.
Hello, I'm Patricia McCormick. I'm a homeowner at Hamilton Cove. I'm a relative newcomer. We bought our place 12 years ago. I'm dismayed that this argument is still going on. I was so happy to think that there was going to be a new Vons in an area that was still walkable. I'm a sailor and I really love walking, but if it were to be proposed at any other spot, I was really worried because for the tourists that come to this town, and I hear that sometimes it ranges up to 10,000 people are walking around this island on really hard days. That's probably an exaggeration, but to see this plan was very encouraging for me, and to see how beautiful, what effort the Vons Corporation is making and the City Council Planning Commission. I'm very encouraged by the future of Catalina Island for a new food facility within walking distance for the sailors and people that live at Hamilton Cove even. Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jim Lutjohan, followed by Julie Huzenga.
Good evening, councilors. I come to you tonight wearing two hats. One as a resident at 323 Catalina Street, so less than a block from the proposed construction site, and I am a homeowner at that address. And also, as you know me more regularly here, as the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau. The mission of the Catalina Island Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau is to attract visitors and advocate for commerce on Catalina Island. That means all commerce, both businesses large and small. My predecessor, Wayne Griffin, previously came here in October and shared with you the results of a survey, or petition, if you will, that got 1,815 signers. And in reviewing that data the last couple of days, I wanted to revisit just a couple of the high points. 60% of the signers in favor of the proposed construction project identified themselves as visitors to the island. Of those, 38.83% stated that they visit the island more than 4 times a year. As you know, our economy is entirely dependent upon tourism. Visitors having a positive experience is the most likely way to keep them coming back. Tonight I ask you to respond to the call of our most frequent visitors in giving them what they have asked for, a new Vons store. As to the constituents that elected each of you to office, among the signers of the petition, there were 529, or over 29%, that identified themselves as living on the island. I thank you for your consideration of this very important matter, and just to drive it home, you know, it's not just for us 4,000 folks who live here, it is for the 1 million or so visitors a year that come here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Julie Huzenga, followed by Roberta Black.
Good evening, Julie Huizenga, 306 Eucalyptus. Family owned, same plot of land for nearly a century now. At the Planning Commission meeting in November, I addressed the obvious fact that the size and location of the new store proposed by Vons was inappropriate for the parcel of land being considered, and I stressed that this piece of land was simply not a wise choice for any business of this magnitude in the high-density residential area. My line of reasoning has always been that the Santa Catalina Island Company should make another parcel of land available. Now I'm even more convinced that this is entirely possible. New information has now come to light. The Tour Plaza Master Plan study they commissioned in 2013 that had drawings and notations of pros and cons on 4 different sites, one of them being the Vons main store site now. This relevant study has been recently removed for public viewing. Council members and good citizens of Avalon, how should we react to being kept in the dark? by their attempt to make us believe that there's only one site available. We should all be outraged by the deception. Sadly, we have come to expect this from the spin and deception from the national political scene. But for this small town of Avalon, where we all rub shoulders on a day-to-day basis, are Mr. Broughton's words still ringing in our ears that it's this plan or no plan? Many took the bait. In fact, I'd expect other grocery chains to jump at the chance to have a presence in Avalon. We have the freedom to discuss issues openly and arrive at our own positions based upon facts. We know the Island Company owns a lot of parcels of land. It is now clear that the other sites were considered, but we were presented with only one, the least desirable one, with inadequate parking and an imposing structure that does not fit into its surroundings, to be built on one of the busiest intersections in town. Not a word was mentioned of this study. Just as an aside, I've been eating gluten-free for 8 years now, and I'm managing just fine. And with the internet, I can order special things, have it delivered right to my door. I'm indignant that so much of your time and energy has been wasted just to find out that what we have been asking for all along, a better alternative, was kept under wraps. The other alternative sites contain better options that remove the negative impact for the surrounding residents, and they benefit all residents by alleviating a good share of traffic congestion and parking nightmares the current site carries. One of the alternative sites on the master plan listed as being sensitive to Avalon scale. Others have recognized this. Why not the Island Company? I urge you to tell the Santa Catalina Island Company to share these other 4 plans with you in depth.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roberta Black, followed by Mark Tasca.
Roberta Black, 235 Sumner. Most of what I was going to address has already been mentioned. I do stress the parking as the number one concern. We had tourists come through the other day in a golf cart. Both sides of Sumner were full. They had nowhere to park. Their question was, where's the parking garage? We've rented a golf cart. We want to go and see something. We want to buy something. We want to eat. There was no parking. When we put it 1 hour parking, it's gonna be worse. Where will the people from Hamilton Cove that are paying $400 and $500 a night or more for their place? They come into town in a golf cart. They want to go to the beach. They want to go shopping. They want to eat. Guess what? No parking. The other issue is the stop sign situation that Kathleen presented. If that stop sign at Tina Vosi's is moved across the intersection, there will be no control for people coming from City Hall going into town. Everyone says, oh, the generosity, the nice people are going to stop and let the people on Beacon Street cross over. That will never happen. Somebody is going to get hit. There's going to be somebody killed. Kathleen was hit years ago. We have to consider all of the impacts. The parking, the traffic, and again, why does it have to be 2.4 times the size of the existing 2 stores? You have duplicity of products in the existing stores. When those are combined and you take out the extra, you have more shelf space. Let's cut it down 40%. Let's cut it down to 15,000 square feet. Eliminate the non-food items. Eliminate the seasonal goods, the stationary supplies. Let's keep our small mom and pops still in business. Let's keep our delis in business. Mr. Ning's, Stephanie's Card Shop, Pam Albers at Metropole Cafe, Avalon Liquor, they're struggling. They say another liquor store or that a liquor store has never been taken out of business. Where's Top Hat? Tomcat, not Top Hat, Tomcats. Where did they go? They got run out of business. So a big box store of 24,000 square feet will kill at least 1 or 2 small businesses. Please consider what you're leaving to the island when you make this decision. I know it's a tough one. I wouldn't want to be in your spot, but we are being railroaded by Vons at this point. When I walk in the store and I get greeted with, hey, look, we're making the decision tonight. And if anyone's checked their Just For You in the last 6 weeks, have you been able to get the weekly ad? No, they took it down. We're getting our hands slapped because we're opposing their store. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Tasca, followed by Maggie Mack.
Good evening, Mark Tasca, 330 Clarissa. Gentlemen, I don't envy you at all. But I wish you take what I'm going to tell you to heart and maybe put some teeth behind what I'm about to tell you. On page 2, they talked about the trash area with recycling. I hope that there is some sort of condition of approval that does happen, because the exemption will not go from one store to the other. As far as to start with parking, it has been pointed out to me a couple of days ago that Vons employees put Vons employee stickers on their wheel of their golf cart, and then they go over town. They're taking up space. Vons employees come down the street, they park in Vons, go out, along in front of the Island Company. They park in the Island Company parking lot, and when that's not good enough, they park over at Parker Court, taking up people's rental space. About 12 years ago, John Searcy came to us because we requested him at the Planning Commission. He said he would monitor this. Oh, it's slid downhill now. So you have abuse of the parking. We have a situation where I guess they're not going to patrol the golf carts anymore. Well, the optics are about the shopping carts. The optics that I see are the fact that when they tore up Metropole, instead of being good neighbors and replacing that wire to control the shopping carts, no problem. We're going to get a new store. Screw them. That's the optics, and that's wrong. Now, what if you guys vote against it tonight? Hey, guess what? There's going to be a lot of backpedaling. Let me see. Once again, I do not envy you. Gentlemen, good night and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Tosca. We're going
Maggie,
to take a break after this next speaker.
Okay.
I don't know.
I believe the name is Maggie Mack or Maggie Mack. Can't read the handwriting. Okay, so she should be coming over then.
That's a fun group back there. How many more do we have?
We have probably about over 20 more that have signed up so far.
Yes.
What's the question? No, don't start having people jump on the queue.
Hi, I am Maggie Mackey.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a 21-year resident and a business owner. Ladies and gentlemen, and city council members, think about the time and the money that Vons has already spent for this site. The numerous agencies, impact studies, and involvement of every department of the state of California. And then the numerous requests for changes that have been respectively listened to by the Vons people and team, and then done. No matter what property would have been chosen, there would be people who would be against it. And the Planning Commission has approved this one. It is the job of the City Council to act for the good of the citizens of the Avalon community. The population we have today, about 4,000, in comparison to what it was in the 40s, has more than doubled. And then there will be more people moving to the island in the very near future. Please consider your vote you make tonight and look at the sea of red in front of you. The silent majority is no longer silent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Maggie. We're going to take a 10-minute break. So we'll be back at 5 after 8. Thank you. And we're back in session here. Hello. We are returning here. A couple little housekeeping things. If you are one of the speakers, when you get to the podium, please adjust the mic so that we can hear you. So there's been some people in the other rooms that have not been able to hear. And could you, in the outline areas, could you keep your reaction down a little bit? It's affecting the main room too. So next speaker in order is...
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to address the concern about the microphone?
I already did, but you were talking at the time.
Oh, I wasn't talking, but could you say it again just so everyone could hear that?
When you approach the podium, please adjust the mic and make sure it's close to your mouth so that all the people can hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next signed up speaker is Mark Milan, followed by Jamie Huzar.
Thank you.
Mark Milan. Oh, okay, absolutely. Mr. Milan's son.
Okay.
131 Metropole. My name is Jaime Huizar. I've been a resident in Avalon for about 2 years. We're here today because both Vaughn's locations, as you know, are substandard. Evidently, just a few people gone out, hired fancy attorneys in order to slow down this development. However, I am in big favor of this new Vaughn's just because it will have ample parking, modern equipment, in addition to providing more employment to the people in Avalon. So I asked Team B to keep on pushing in order to issue building permits to the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, forgive me on this, I can't read the handwriting, but Lucia Swazowski?
Lydia.
Okay, Lydia. Sorry, I cannot read the handwriting. Followed by another tough one. Number 22 starts with a C, I think. Cleverly. Starts with a B, the last name. Really can't read the handwriting. If you signed up behind.
B-U-I-L-I?
B-U-I.
No.
What is that? Cleverly. What does that say?
I don't know.
Okay.
Work on it, guys.
Can't read this handwriting.
Lydia, you're up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, City Council members. My name is Lydia Christovskis, 321 Marilla. My husband and I have been living here for the past 30 years. When we first moved here, the year-round population was approximately 1,700. Today it is over 4,000, with many more visitors every year. We have had the same market with 3 checkout counters all these years. It is time for a new and larger, up-to-date market, one that can supply our needs and the tourists at the location that has been designated for our new Vaughn's Market. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia.
Okay, forgive me, this is the speaker, I can't read their name.
Go to the next one.
All right, next one would be David Carlisle, followed by Donna Denning.
Dave Carlisle, Avalon resident, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. Thank you again for hearing us tonight. And again, we certainly wouldn't want to be in your shoes. I'm not going to try to talk you out of building the Vaughn's. I think enough people in here tonight have made some very good points. But I am going to talk to you about some points I would like to bring up if you do approve the Vaughn's tonight. I'd like, and we ask, that you please mitigate certain risks or activities to the surrounding properties. We would request that you require Vaughn's to provide things such as triple pane windows to surrounding housing or rental properties or hotels that request them. They could be adversely affected by the backing noise. I think that would be a minimal cost in the overall big scheme of things. And I request that they do limit the trash trucks and deliveries to daytime hours. That was one of the requirements of the original approval by the Planning Commission, and it's no longer in there. And I do request that you bring that back up. I did speak with Rich Coffey at Catalina Freight Line, and he said that would be no problem delivering in daylight hours. I also bring up a new suggestion that we haven't previously asked for. This is a building that would require AC units, no doubt. So there's technology out there that even the city has to provide fresh potable water from an AC unit. So I request that either you require those or you have a study conducted by Vaughn's and have a very good reason why they can't use those, which would alleviate some of the water issues. They can not only provide power from solar, but they can be leading edge and provide potable water from their condensing units that they already have to run a grocery store. There will be impact on property values. Maybe slight, maybe large. We don't know. We will only know down the road if it is approved and built. So we would request that you guys put these implementations. A couple other things I'd like to touch on: noise. The beep. Perfect timing.
Timing's everything.
Exactly. So the beeping sound, in a perfect world, it will only be roughly 4 minutes per day. Things happen. I'm not saying it's going to be much longer, but there will be times where it is much longer due to traffic or something like that, and they have to leave it in reverse. So we're talking about a perfect world. Parking. As Mr. Council said, we need to be planning for 50 to 60 years down the road. That's why we want the store bigger, right? So why not the parking planning for 60, years down the road? The water issue. The water allotment. I understand there's new technology for refrigeration units and so forth, but you can't use less water to water more vegetables.
Thank you.
Compute.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Could you guys use your timer sync?
Donna Denny, followed by Andrea Karstarfin.
Hello.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. I love all you guys. I love my community. I'm so proud. I have my hat here from the fire. It was 8 years ago when my granddaughter was born. And I'm reminded, I'm so proud how we worked together at that time. And we're doing the same thing now. Much better then, but anyways. So I'll just read this. I wanted to ask myself 2 questions before I came. I sat down and I said, how can I do things better? How can I do things differently? How can I be part of the solution? I just want to say to the Vons employees, wherever I'm looking, I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? I am sorry. Please forgive me for taking for granted what you do every day, hauling heavy things up and down, back and forth to each store. Not only do you do that when your body is worn out, but it's really not quite healthy as far as I know. Each one of you matter along the way, whether it's you folks here or our community or the folks that work at Vons. I just want to thank them as well for not coming into my workplace and telling me what to do and to use my body in a physical way that will cause pain for the rest of my life. And that's it. When I was 50, I just turned 60, I said, when I'm 60, I'm going to run for city council. I'm going to do it. But now I'm 60, and I don't think I'm going to do it because well, there was kind of a insinuation that if you don't make the right decision tonight, there'll be pitchforks. And I don't want any part of that. I just want to keep loving my neighbors, and I know we will. I'm real proud of you guys. Remember the fire. We can do this.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
Andrea Karstarfin, followed by Joanna Arnold.
Andrea Seals, Karstarfin, 25 Cabrillo Drive. I wanted to thank the council for taking this matter seriously and not making any hasty decisions. I know they've gotten some flack lately for not making decisions, as fast as some people would like. But this is a very important one that's going to affect the community for a long time. So I'm glad that it has maybe taken this long so we can get everything right. A friend of mine always says this quote, everyone has the runs for glory, but nobody stops to scrutinize the plan, which I think is a Paul Simon song. Anyways, but I think it seems in this case that the plan was scrutinized, but some of the faults of it have been ignored. Some of the things I think that people have already touched on, but I'm just going to go real fast if I can. My main concern is safety. That is the most busiest, in my opinion, one of them, intersections in Avalon. I see it through the eyes of my coworkers who deliver beverages. I see it through the eyes of my father, who drives the big tractor trailers to Vaughn's, to and from, and others. And I see it through, as a mother with children walking, things like that. That street, Catalina, Sumner, all of that area, those are very narrow streets. And even if you were to eliminate parking on either side, the streets are still very narrow. It's a main corridor for families living on the flats, visiting on the flats, to go to and from the beach. I have witnessed throughout the summer families coming home from the beach, walking in the middle of the street with their children, floaties, their wagons, all in the middle of the street. And I start to see, how's this going to work with Vaughn's? How's this going to work with deliveries? People trying to find parking? And I just don't see it. I don't see it. I spoke with my father, who's worked for the freight lines for 40 years. He feels delivering those trailers is going to be difficult. He thinks it's dangerous, and he believes, his personal opinion, it's going to be only a matter of time before there's an accident. Because even at where they're delivering now, which is a wider street, I mean, you've seen it. It's not ideal. You can't stop people from walking behind them, in front of them, cars trying to pass because they want to go. And it's going to be worse on a narrow street that I think is much smaller and does not have the capacity for people to go around like you do right now on Metropole. Is that it?
Yes.
Could I?
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Joanna Arnold, followed by Paul DeMeyer.
Hi. Hi. Joanna Arnold, 127 Marilla. And quite frankly, I don't think any of us would want a Vaughn's in our front yard. Nor does anybody want somebody to build in front of them and block their view. But these things happen. And you can't buy property next to a huge, by Avalon standards, huge block of commercial permit and not anticipate something large going in there. So if we take Vaughn's out of the issue and put in 2 big apartment buildings or a condo unit or a restaurant with a catering facility, both of these would be at their 30-foot limit or whatever that limit is. Anything going in there is going to be huge and massive and impact the community. I think Vaughn's has tried to change the outdoor aesthetics.
Could you put the mic closer to your mouth?
Sorry.
Thank you.
I think Vaughn's has tried to change the outdoor aesthetics to comply with all the concerns of a handful of residents that are concerned about this. But as you can see in this sea of red, your constituents that voted you into this office, it is obvious that we want this market in Avalon and at that location. Thank you very much for your time.
Paul DeMeyer, followed by John King.
Good evening, Paul DeMeyer, 201B Calle del Sol. I'm here to talk about one item and one issue only, which is that of water. And I'd like to remind everyone, thank you for Pastor Scott Schmeckpepper's comments at the beginning of this invocation. Thank you. When he said we ought to thank all of you, each one of our city council members, for doing what they do and for considering the needs of this community. I'd like to personally thank Richard Hernandez for asking for clarity on the CPUC issue as to the water and water transfers, both in terms of a letter that they sent back to us and then in a public hearing that they held in this community. Although I didn't really appreciate it at the time, in retrospect, what came out of that letter and those meetings is that water transfers should not be considered an issue on this Vaughn's grocery store project. The approved California Public Utilities Commission water tariffs for Catalina allow anyone to request a water transfer from Edison. There is no special treatment for the Island Company. Therefore, water availability should also not be considered an issue. Whether you like the ability to transfer water or not, the new Vons will get its water supply from the pre-existing water allocation at Wilcox Nursery, which is on the same parcel, and from excess water created by savings at the adjacent Golf Gardens miniature golf course, also on the same parcel. What I'd like to do is show you very briefly a chart that I put together. On one side, it is the Edison bill from the miniature golf gardens in July. And on that bill, it has every month for the last 12 months listed and the total gallons used at the miniature golf gardens. On the other side of this, I put together a chart that shows for the last 12 months the water that we've used at the miniature golf gardens and the allocation that we got prior to rationing for those same months, same 12 months in 2012 and 2013. The upshot of all of this is that we have saved 672,000 gallons in the last 12 months. That's 2.06 acres. That's enough savings to develop and build and operate 3 or 4 or 5 Vons grocery stores. So the issue about water availability is not, it shouldn't be an issue. The last thing I'd like to say is it's very easy for everyone to always question the island company. That's why I brought the bill here, and you can see Edison's numbers. You can look at that. But we support community-wide efforts for water, and we're happy to do it. We've saved 27 acre-feet in the last 12 months.
Thank you. John King, followed by Catherine Waters. John King, followed by Catherine Waters.
Here, we'll hand it out. Yes.
Good evening, honorable council members. I am John King, speaking as a member of the community of Avalon. I want to thank you for your diligence in pursuing the details of this project. Each of you have done your best to represent the citizens of Avalon. Councilmember Hernandez, you are to be commended for your efforts to clarify the water issues. So we do appreciate that. Councilmember Olson, we want to thank you for your consistency in keeping this discussion focused on Vons. And Councilmember Sampson, you are to be commended for ensuring that all voices get heard, even those too shy to speak up at the podium. As you have noticed, there are a number of red shirts in the audience tonight, and many of those folks have worn those red shirts so that their voices could be heard. What I did is I asked each of them if they would sign a document, which I have here, and I guess we can submit. It's about 278 names. We gave away 300 t-shirts of this variety and another 110 of this, so quite a number of people are involved in the t-shirt project. But they signed the document saying that I could represent them. So rather than having them come up and say, we want Vons, we want Vons, we want Vons, we're trying to economize a little bit. But I'm going to ask them all if they would, even in the other room, you guys, if they would please stand and just join me in terms of our request. So please repeat after me. Dear council members, we are the community of Avalon. We are the community of Avalon. We are your constituents. We are your constituents. We ask that you vote to approve this Vons project. We ask that you vote to approve this Vons project. And thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Catherine Waters, followed by Ellen Herrick.
Hello, I'm Catherine Waters, and my grandparents are buried here, but they have great-grandchildren still coming here. And I moved to Hawaii in 1990, raised my children there, and we would fly from Hawaii to the mainland to fly here to go parasailing. My children still live in Hawaii. My granddaughter lives in Hawaii. We still come here every year. I love the island. I love all that it has to offer. And I think that there's many examples outside of this one little beautiful little seaside village that we could learn from. I did learn a lot living in Kona, Hawaii, and with responsible growth. And also we will see major growth 15, 20, 30 years from. I hope my granddaughter Tara can come here and see it just as wonderful and beautiful and charming as it is. And the people still work together and love one another. I am very disheartened because of the conflict, it seems, in our hearts with some opposing viewpoints and the way that they're being handled. But I'd love to say that I think I have a real estate license in Hawaii. I have a real estate license here. And there's a great spot, I think, on Pebbly Beach, because the ships come in. It can go right straight over directly to Pebbly Beach and not at all have any impact on our beautiful homes and our walking and tourism. It's a walking village. It's just a blessing to be here. And there's also close to water. And then we could have a wonderful little, obviously, a beautiful little trolley car going to and from and deliver groceries to the elderly for 25 cents. I mean, we could eliminate some commercial signs and we could put up some darling flags. It's a village. It's a seaside village where I caught my first fish, where, you know, my family is all, and it may sound sentimental, but I mean, it's one of the last places, and this little spot of land is in the center, at the heart of Avalon, where we all walk by, and we all have a wonderful experience feeling nature, huge eucalyptus trees, and safety and security. I'm just thinking there's a better place. And for safety, security, I want a beautiful new Vons here. But I will tell you this, I'm kind of disappointed. All of the wonderful people in the red shirts are so loyal to Vons, and yet I can go into a third of the size of the larger Vons here, and it may be a Trader Joe's, and have it beautiful, better, healthier quality food from all over the planet. I will tell you this, KTA in Hawaii ships food 3,000 miles across the ocean, and it's fresh, and it's healthy, and it's nurturing all the time. They don't get one-day-old bread. They don't get any of that. How are they doing it when it's the most remote landmass on the planet? And I lived in Kailua Kona for 12 years, 1990 to 2002. And so I'm thinking, how come they can do it? That's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Ellen Herrick, followed by Laura Steele.
Who's next, please?
Ellen Herrick, followed by Laura Steele.
Okay.
This is Ellen. I'm Ellen Harry, and I've been coming over here for 87 years. This is an island, and that's what she said. It's an island. If you need to make Vons bigger, you've got a Vons store there. People rebuild, they redo things. It's all about money. Money is, Vons has made a mint over here. They aren't going to give up. They are going to provide. They need input of what else could be done besides a supermarket. And that's all I can say. That isn't the way to go. You need to just look at what we have and do something with that.
Thank
you. Laura Steele, followed by what looks like Ed Palmer, maybe? Can't read.
Hello, thank you for letting me address you and the larger community. We've had a house in Catalina for 50 years. We have raised children and families. We have had amazing experiences, and I have never experienced anything like the rudeness and divisiveness that this has caused. I was heckled. Somebody threatened to call the police on me today because I was applauding Ms. Carlisle, and so I have never seen anything like this. I would caution you to remember those of us who've been there for many, many years and love the island for what it is. Of course, we would all love a new Vons. It's hilarious that the signs say yes on Vons, as if we're saying no to Vons. We're not saying no to Vons. We're saying no to the location. We're saying no to 34 feet height. We're saying no to noise and traffic. We're saying no to children being at risk because there's not a stop sign or there's not a traffic study that's been done appropriately. And we're saying no to environmental and noise impact. So we still say no. We still encourage Vons to participate with us, to make a decision, because we all need to eat. Thank you very much. And I appreciate everyone who has considered our position. And I just hope that we can come to some accommodation where both sides can meet and where people are not yelled at or heckled for trying to have a different opinion in America. Thank you.
E.J. Palmer, followed by Alex Glaves.
Hi, I'm E.J. Palmer, and I live at 75 Sil Vista. This is really hard for me. I'm also an employee at Vons. I've been with Vons for 15 years. Through those 15 years, we've talked about having a new store. I've also talked to other people that have made it, people have said this before, that there was plans for a new Vons at that particular site years ago. I respect all you city council people, but I also am just begging you. I believe that I can serve my community better with a brand new store, and we would be able to not run into problems of not having the availability of the items that need to be for everybody. And I just, also as an employee, I work very, very hard. And if anybody really knew how hard I really worked, I think that they would all want to vote for this new Vons. I don't think anybody will be happy where it's at, but it's got to be in a central location for the tourists that come here. And I also think that some of these hotels, that a lot of people go to hotels and they want Vons or a grocery store right next to them, and I think that they would see maybe a rise in their people coming to stay with them. And my heart is in this. It's really hard for me, but I just beg of you, city council members, the three of you, to please vote yes on Vons tonight. It would make my world so much more happier, and we could provide so much more for the community in customer service. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Glaves, followed by Glenn Gustafson.
Hello, I'm Alex Glaves, but you should recognize me by my last name. I'm Riccolo. As you know, Ted Susie, or Sue Riccolo, was on the council. My grandfather was born on this island. My great-grandfather is buried on this island. My family's been here for about 110 years. And in my house, there's a picture of 1940 Avalon. And people don't like change. I mean, if you want to go back to the way it was, I mean, change is good. Change has to happen to succeed. Competition is good. I understand that some businesses might go out, and some businesses might change, but you have to have competition. But one of the major issues that I've heard, and an issue that I know a lot about, is water allocation. I've been studying it for about 6 years. I took classes in college. I've worked for the Bureau of Land Management, for the Forest Service, for the State Park Service, and for numerous other environmental agencies and groups. And what people are saying about this water allocation is not enough. This is probably one of the best water allocation bonds places that I've seen in a while. The whole notion of the drip system is going to save lots of water. The way that they are constructing is going to save lots of water. So the whole issue of this water is going to be really pouring into it. It's going to be so much. It's not really, it's kind of in void. It doesn't have any standing ground. And the second thing that I would say is that when I was young, it was very difficult because, you know, my grandfather would say, go get some groceries, and I would go to the first Vons, and they wouldn't have it, so I'd go to the second Vons, and I'd go back to the first Vons because I didn't know where to go. And then there would be huge shopping carts blocking the way, and they still are because you can't get around them. And it was just a huge inconvenience to have friends come over to the island and have to go dip back and forth between different Vons because they don't know where they're going or which Vons to go to have tourists come over to the island and not know which Vons to go to and realize 10 minutes later because of the limited amount of food or water that some of their supplies is not there. I'm happy to say that we have fifth generation on the island. The last 100 years have been good to our family, as hopefully you guys are well aware. So I'm hoping that the next 100 years is going to be good to our family too. And if you vote yes on Vons, that is going to be a major milestone, and it's going to definitely pave a greater roadway to not only our family, but the families who enjoy this island. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Glenn Gustafson, followed by Gina Hill. Apologies for your last name, Glenn.
Everybody does that. There aren't enough Swedes around. I'm Glenn Gustafson, Eucalyptus Hills Estates. And sorry about the t-shirt, but when I got there, all they had left was extra, extra large. So I would like to speak to the issue of the size of the store. And before coming here, I was 27 years in Northern Virginia. And I watched them build a road that was an absolute boondoggle. It was about 15 miles long, super highway, 2 lanes in each direction, divided in the middle, etc. And I used that road a few times with no traffic on it. And it just seemed like a huge waste. Then fast forward 25 years. Dulles Airport had grown up. Northern Virginia was growing like crazy. The land that the road was on was farmland, was cheap farmland before, and they bought it. But now it's all Reston and Herndon and other high-end communities. And so they had to widen the road then, 25 years later. It wasn't big enough, even though it seemed like a boondoggle at the time. And what I learned out of that is I learned that good planners, like the ones who are involved with the Island Company and with the Vons store, are thinking way ahead of where most of us ordinary people are thinking. And it's been my experience that the service in Vons has been super, the management has been good, and I think that we need to stand behind them and allow them to do what they think is best. I think it's best also. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Gina Hill, followed by Rosellen Gardner.
Good evening, Council. On that idea of looking ahead, one of my concerns is that if we're looking 50 or 60 years ahead, is looking at the parking. The present plan takes away the present part of the present plan, parking. In the traffic report that I just read, it stated that if the lot was full, quote, people will have to find another time to shop, or people will find another time to shop. I don't know of many people that decide that they're just going to find another time to shop and change their plans, but that could be. Traffic. One of my biggest things is I've heard my dad say that he goes for 10 minutes and he counts the traffic on the corner of Beacon and Sumner. So the other day he wanted to do it for an hour. So we sat on Friday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. and we counted traffic for an hour. And we counted over 650 vehicles that passed through, motorized vehicles, that passed through that intersection in 1 hour. That's a concern to me. Also, the delivery of trailers on the narrow street. I watched trailers just the other day on Metropole, and I still have a problem on how they're going to do that on Beacon. Also, with only a one-way loading bay. Then there was one other issue of golf cart containment. Years ago, we used to have that problem. Cart, not golf cart. Market cart containment, using the carts or letting the carts go anywhere. So I understand the Planning Commission said they wanted shopping cart containment as a condition of approval. So that would be something maybe to think about. The new staff report basically says that there's no shopping cart containment, or no proof of it. So if you can keep that in mind. So those would be my major concerns. Again, we do need a new Vons. There's no question about that. That's not a question. And also finding the way, you guys have a hard job, but finding the way to look into those little details that many, many people don't look at or maybe don't focus on quite enough. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you.
Rose Ellen Gardner, 325 Las Lomas. I was born and raised here, and I'm not going to tell you how many years I've lived here, but it's been a long time. I would like to respectfully request that when you make your consideration and vote on this project, you do not make your decision based on traffic and parking. We have a traffic and parking problem in this town. It's way past time. Really? It's way past time for us to seriously consider that. But while we're considering it, I would really appreciate a new Vons to be able to shop in. And we can maybe all come together as a community and figure out what we're going to do about traffic. We need, in my opinion, we need a good circulating tram situation. And that could be even intra-island. But anyway, I'm getting off the subject. I just think traffic and parking is not, it is a problem, but it's not a Vons problem. So I really hope you'll vote in favor of this project tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Roselle.
Mayor Pro Tem, that is the last speaker we have signed up this evening.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate that.
Would now be appropriate to close the public hearing?
I was going to close the public hearing. We just, geez. We will now close the public hearing and come back to the council. Thank you, sir. Council members? Staff?
Yes.
Anybody want to jump right in there?
Defer to the council.
Joe?
Okay, yeah, let's get down to brass tacks here and figure out what we need to do here. Okay, just bear with me, all right? This is going to take a while. Listen carefully, listen closely. This is some serious stuff we're getting into right now, and I want you all to understand that we're doing our best up here, and we're going to do what's best for the community. You know, we've all been involved in a lot of dialogue with a lot of people. I have personally a lot of people on both sides of this issue. To say there's a small amount on either side is not accurate. There's a large amount of people on both sides of this issue. But bottom line is most everybody understands that we need a Vons. Even the people that don't want it understand we need a Vons. And they understand that there's some adjustments that need to be made. That's all they're asking. It is a big shopping, it is a big store to shop in. It's going to be huge. As far as the Catalina side of the street, I think it's unbelievable to think that somebody's going to put up a 40-foot wall in front of your business or your hotel or your home. But you know what? We're asking these people to do this. We're asking the people that live on those streets to please take one for the team. In other words, I think Mr. Carlisle had a good suggestion that, Mr. Bratton, I hope you are listening, because about these triple pane windows, I think that would be a pretty generous offer. And but what the homeowners are doing is awfully generous for Vons as well, and for the people of Avalon. Okay, if they're willing to say, okay, we like the idea of the store, we just maybe want some windows to protect our customers from all the noise and whatever traffic might come by. We're going to have a lot of traffic. That's not Von's fault. That's not anybody's fault. That's our fault right here. That's my fault that we have so much traffic. We have 3,500 vehicles. If we put in a parking lot that accommodated 500 vehicles, we'd still have a deficiency of 2,500 parking spots. There's no way we're going to have enough parking spots. I'm kind of bummed out there's only one stall for a full-size vehicle, because people who come from the Isthmus, Emerald Bay, Holland's Landing, Middle Ranch, they come shop for a week or two. Now, if you get two people coming in from the Isthmus that want to pull in to Vaughn's and shop for 2 weeks, they're spending close to $1,000 each shopping trip. You're telling them, well, you know what? Come back next week. I'm sorry, that's not going to work. People are going to need, we're going to need maybe another full-size parking stall in here. I'm telling you right now. Trash trucks and deliveries in the daytime, I'm understanding, is that a condition of approval? Trash trucks and delivery trucks in the day from?
Yeah, one of the conditions, I believe, in the document deals with hauling times. Could you read that for me, Mr. City Attorney?
Trash, for the trash, it's that there be an enclosure provided adequate to accommodate cardboard, baler, and separation of green combustible waste from other trash. I do recall.
There's another one that deals with the times of
Okay, if that's construction. I do recall at the Planning Commission that there was a discussion on limiting deliveries to daytime hours.
Right.
And so
Okay.
we can put that condition back in.
Okay.
Consistent with the construction.
Okay, along with that point, thank you. Along with that point then, that brings to mind that particular corner, on the corner of Beacon, which is a four-way stop. What are we gonna do here? Steve, do you have any ideas? Because this truck's gonna go through Beacon, cross Catalina, and he's gonna stop. Now, are we gonna have one flagman, two flagmen, four-way warning sign signals, stop signals? Because this is a very dangerous area, and it was brought up that, hey, and by one of the truck driver's daughters, actually, and saying that there's gonna be a problem here. Before they even said that, I brought this to the attention of a few people, that I'm concerned about this corner right here, that we're gonna be backing these trucks up on, okay, Bill and Steve? See that? We need to come up with a solution, a safe solution, and if it doesn't work the first time, we gotta come back and make it right the second time, okay? That is when, if this is approved and it's gone through, and the plan doesn't work the way we have it, and it doesn't work out, and we come back and we say it's not safe enough, we gotta make it safe. Every single person who lives in the flats, Canyon Terrace, all the condominiums up there, they all use this area as a confluence to go to the beach, to go shopping. They're all coming in here, like Andrea said, with wagons, grocery carts, baskets, bicycles, trikes, golf carts, and it's gonna be crazy backing up here, okay? Especially if we do it in the day. So there's some pros and cons to this food being delivered in the daytime. Okay, so that's one of my main concerns right now, is the safety of backing up on this corner.
And I think if you want to, the subject matter expert on this can address that specific question.
Okay, so we'll have you come up. Who is the gentleman's name, and where is he? Can you raise your hand? Okay, so you're the traffic specialist? Okay, you can help us mitigate this problem that I speak of, possibly? I mean, you don't have to do it now, but will you talk about this when I'm done? Yeah, go ahead if you can.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the job site, and I mean with the proposed job site and the parking problem or the backup area?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay.
Councilmember
What do you
Sampson,
have in
can
mind,
introduce
sir?
himself. Introduce yourself and your firm and your relation to the applicant.
Thank you.
My name's Nitai Basu. I'm with Fair and Piers.
Can you get closer to the mic,
Excuse
please?
me, yeah, you're gonna have to speak directly into the mic so we can all hear. This is really important stuff, okay?
I'm Nitai Basu with Fair and Piers, and I'm responsible for this traffic study that was prepared for the project as part of the CEQA documentation for this. Mr. Bratton, described the proposed operation of the backing maneuvers, that a service clerk would come out and whenever delivery arrives, and he would be there, as sometimes happens now, or always happens now. I've seen this happen at the Metropole store.
Okay.
To flag traffic, to block traffic when that backing occurs.
Okay. Yeah, but you just said you're the specialist, but you said he gave you the advice. Is he the specialist or you?
I say that this is what is proposed.
Okay. And don't you have something that you're proposing personally, since you're the one who's the specialist on this?
What I said was.
Can you come up to the mic?
I was repeating what he gave me.
Oh, okay.
The material I present comes from my consultants.
Okay, so, yeah, but I'm asking him what he thinks of this particular design.
I think that's a reasonable solution to the loading dock located at that location.
It has to be absolutely a good solution, okay? A reasonable solution won't cut it, because a reasonable solution could potentially back up into some family or something. You have one guy, you have one traffic guard here. Where's he going to stand? Is he going to stand on this corner, or is he going to stand over here? I mean, who's going to stop the traffic coming from Sumner over to Catalina Street when this guy's standing over here, or he's attending to a car coming from this direction, this direction, this direction?
Mr. Sampson, I believe the condition that we could impose on it is that it's a safe operation, and it can be amended as we find out what's safe.
Oh, no. We need to figure out some solutions tonight.
But I don't think we're available to figure out the solution. I think we identify the issue.
Okay.
Which is, we want people to be safe, we want pedestrians to be
Okay.
safe, cars to be safe, and their initial proposal is one flagman.
So, okay.
Observation says one flagman doesn't work, we get another flagman.
Oh, or if two flagmen doesn't work, we go to the next solution. Okay, that's fine with me. Cool, let's go on. Excuse me? Oh, yeah. Oh, see, yeah. Oh, yeah. And Mr. Bratton, also we spoke about, I spoke about cisterns. I wanted you guys to have some kind of a water collection basin or some kind of a roof runoff for this project. It's massive. You're going to have a ton of water coming off there. And we do want you to have some landscaping. So if you could just save some of that water, or you had another idea, would you?
Yes, I immediately upon discussing that with you, I went and talked to our architects and I talked to our engineers. And one of the things that I found out, and actually this will answer a question that was posed by somebody else that was saying that we should collect the water from our condensers. And in my presentation tonight, I mentioned that we have moved from water condensers because of exactly that situation, because it wastes water, to air-cooled condensers. So as a result, there will not be any condensation coming off of the roof. So then I went one step further than that, and I said to my architectural firm, should we do it for the days that it rains? And we could, because that would be the only collection, and we could collect it into a cistern and use it for irrigation. And his comment back to me was, with the landscape plan that's in place, with the water-tolerant plants, the landscape that's basically designed to live anywhere on the island of Catalina, you would never use the water. So I addressed it. That's how it came back. I'm not trying to avoid anything. I mean, if
So you don't have cisterns? No way to collect water? Or
there's nothing to do with the water once we collect it. That's the point.
Catalina plants.
Because the landscaping's not there.
Okay, then there's no other application that you might be using non-potable water, like say to wash the building, to wash the sidewalks, to you won't need it?
Well, we can do conjecture here for a little while. I mean, if you've got other ideas. I mean, I didn't think about washing the sidewalks. I'm sorry, that just wasn't on my mind tonight.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's something you might want to think about.
But
'cause
yeah,
that's what
I'm
we're
not trying to avoid it. I'm just saying, if a cistern needs to be built, and a cistern actually can be proven to be something that's that's a value added and a water saving situation from a real perspective, as opposed to just doing it because it's a nice gesture that doesn't really do anything at the end of the day, then I'm fine with recommending that. It's not an issue.
Okay.
But my architects told me we wouldn't use the water.
Councilmember Sampson, if I can go back to your last point on the plan for the flagmen and safety.
Yes.
Okay, so in the environmental documents and the traffic plan, they have a certain plan in terms of making certain that it's safe when cars back up and when it's loading in.
Okay.
In addition to that, your conditions of approval provide that the city can impose additional measures for safety, for unloading, for during the construction, for the hauling. That's condition number 16 of the conditions of approval. So in addition to the conditions set forth in the environmental document, they're going to have to submit a safety plan to the city that satisfies the city that it's safe. And part of that safety plan, this is in addition to the environmental measures. But as part of that safety plan, if there's additional requirements needed, the city can impose that on them after this is operational.
Okay,
So we
great.
have the
Well-
ability, we're going to require that plan. It's an additional condition of approval. Again, it's separate from the CEQA document, but they're going to have to submit that plan.
Okay, great. So we're going to put that in there then. We'll just keep going down this list then. Okay, so how long would the project take from start to finish? 10 months. When would you start the project if we approved it tonight?
We would start the project as soon as we would first have to do our construction drawings, which would take 60 to 90 days to finish the construction drawings. After that, the building permit process, you know what, we haven't gotten far enough along where I've had those conversations, but perhaps Ben, you could give me a quick estimate, or Steve, you could give me a quick estimate right now? Give me one right now.
I'd say 60 to 90 days for that.
So 90 days, worst case scenario, so that's 6 months. So you'd be starting construction 6 months from now. And when we think about construction, keep in mind that one of the first things that we do after we build the foundation is we enclose the building. So it's not construction like we're building a bridge, where it's a jackhammer through the entire stages of construction. One of the things we do very quickly is get the shell up so that that basically mitigates the sound.
Nice. Okay, we want to know, make sure that we know who the project manager is 24/7. Okay, even if they're not working on there, that there's a number that people can call who live in the area. If there's a problem, if they have a complaint, they have somebody that's a sounding board for that, okay? Containments, parking spaces, okay. Please address the parking. Okay, the parking. I wanted to add, we're going to do some modifications on, if this project is approved, we're going to add some parking spaces, modify some parking areas on Sumner, and I've actually had a conversation with some people for the Island Company, and they were actually okay with giving us an easement onto the property so we can possibly expand some of the diagonal parking spaces on Sumner. Now, since there's only one parking space for the large vehicles, I'd like to maybe do the same thing we're doing on Metropole, which is one side of the street is full-size vehicles. The other side of the street, there's going to be room for 9 or 10 more vehicles. And if somebody is here from the Island Company to confirm that tonight, I would appreciate it if you can come up and say it in front of the audience so that we know that that's going to go ahead and happen.
And Councilmember Sampson, this would be something that would be, I guess,
an attachment?
Well, I mean, it's
a different project.
Independent from this, yes, separate from this project because the parking requirements have been met. However, I mean, I wouldn't want to discourage anyone from the Island Company if there's been some type of conversation about that.
Okay, well, I don't see anybody running up here, but I had a conversation, I had a promise with a handshake from the president of the Island Company and the owner of the Island Company.
As a separate project, we'd be happy to have.
Now, it wasn't a deal that we did.
Sure, no,
it was just something that we were trying to do because we knew parking would be a problem, and that was something that I've been pushing forward, and I've been working hard on it.
Just a question, sir. Where's the easement needed?
Between the golf gardens and Sumner Avenue. There's a little
green box there.
Well, what's going to happen is we need more room for the street, width-wise, so it would probably push the sidewalk more onto their property. See, so we can get those parking slots diagonal all the way down Sumner Avenue. Okay. So that's where they're talking about it. I think it's an offer. I don't think it's. I think it's generous. Any kind of property that they can possibly give us. We'll probably have to take out the grass area, the eucalyptus trees, or the the area that's supposed to be grass, but it's really not. Or it is in the middle of winter, but not in the summer. Either way, it's kind of an area that I think we can sacrifice for. I hate to take out those beautiful 100-year eucalyptus trees, but it's something that might have to be done if this project is approved. The 1 hour parking, I've heard that mentioned like 5 times tonight. There is no 1 hour parking for that area, right? I mean, we didn't approve that yet, correct? That as far as outside of...
The council can add their own parking restrictions or conditions. The planning commission...
Okay, but we haven't done that yet, correct?
Right. The Planning Commission's condition number 7 said that the applicant and owner shall share the cost equally. In other words, the bonds and the island company shall share the cost equally with the city to reprogram the curbside parking in the 200 block of Sumner and Catalina to facilitate 1 hour parking. So that was the condition that the Planning Commission put on. You can accept or reject that condition.
Okay. That should be okay for, well, I don't know if that's a good idea, because that's an area that people park to go down and spend money downtown too, and we don't want to discourage them from walking down to Front Street and spending money on the businesses that we support in Avalon. That is the people that are the city of Avalon as well, the business owners. So that's something that we need to address, and we need to get it right.
And, okay, forgive me. So would your direction be to depart from the planning commission's recommendation and come up with a different proposal? I'm just trying to
I'd like to take suggestions on that and talk about it a little bit more after this, but I would like to see one side of the street full-size vehicles. Good idea. And the other side golf carts, and that's the side that we're going to have diagonal parking. Maybe half that could be 1 hour parking, and half of it could be parking for people that they go down and patronize the businesses on Front Street and down towards the city of Avalon, closer to the beach. Now the improvements, I'm not sure who's going to pay for. I want to know who's going to pay for these improvements that we're going to make. That is for the parking spaces. Is that something that the city's going to have to foot the bill for?
The planning commission recommended that it be shared jointly between the applicant and the city. You could change those conditions. You could have, I mean, frankly, painting and determining. That's not a huge expense.
It's huge. We're gonna have to tear up gutters, pull down trees, extend the sidewalk over. I believe it's a pretty.
Oh, okay. Forgive me. I thought you were just talking about restriping or repainting the curb.
No,
You're talking about the other separate item.
Yeah, I'm talking about the extended parking that we're supposed to add on there. People wanted more parking. I think we made progress in getting at least 10 more parking spots.
Okay, and so on the separate item that you mentioned,
or 9 more.
That would need to be a separate
it would
project.
Yes. I think it would. I would have to show this to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have to be a separate project, especially if we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't have to be an applicant and co-applicant in this project, and they own the parking space, so at least.
It's a separate project, because
No,
we'd have to look at the environmental
This is going to be the
impact
city parking
of taking the trees out and moving the curbs.
So maybe it would be our expense. I mean, but it would. I think
we'd have to look at that. But
I think it would be substantial. But we gotta do this. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be tough to do, I'm sure. And you know what? I'd love to see that underneath the building, on top of the building. Unfortunately, I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, we can say, yeah, you can do that, but I would imagine that would cost you maybe another, what, $10 million? Okay.
Can we just keep it up here for the time being, please?
Okay, now, let's see. Okay, I've got that. Okay, I got one last point that I wanted to make, maybe two. Okay, the loading zone has been explained. Now, the Beacon and Sumner intersection. So we're adding another. So Beacon and Sumner, where the entryway is. That sounds like another nightmare, and I hope that you guys can mitigate the concerns that Kathleen Zeller had, because that sounds like another dangerous thing. And it's just going to be a cluster. But you know what? Once again, that intersection is crazy already. There's 600 vehicles going by there. There's going to be more. We have way too many vehicles here to begin with. I'm not saying that that's totally your problem, but I'm saying now it's all of our problem. We have to mitigate that. because that's one of my main concerns. And if you want me to vote on this project tonight, I want to know, have some kind of idea. If you want me to vote and approve this project tonight, I got to have some kind of an idea of what we're going to do on that intersection. And I want it explained to me in detail tonight. And that's all I have for right now.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson.
Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah, I just, mainly, I'd like to ask, is Vaughn's willing to make changes in this project?
Richard, they can't hear you.
Is Vaughn's willing to make any changes in this project, in the height of this building and the length of this building in any way? Are you subject to that at all?
You know, that's a very open question. You know, if to the extent, as I explained in the presentation, because we did look, I actually went to the architects because I had the conversation with some other council members associated with the height, and we went and looked, and we just, you know, the two areas where the height is the tallest on both on Beacon and on Catalina, that is probably most concerning to the Catalina resident. Is basically it's a function of where the elevator shaft is, and then also where the mechanical room is, and it's the required height that would be required. If it's not there, it'd be somewhere else, and somewhere else means then it takes away from either the inside of the building and I do refer to the building as 20,000 feet. Somebody was talking about that because I think of the footprint. The other 3,000 is that mezzanine level. That is handling all of the equipment and the things that we, you know, wouldn't want to be outside because it would be something else that's going to be unsightly. It's not unheard of. In Long Beach, we just finished a new store that we have all of our mechanical equipment up on top of the roof, and there's a high-rise beside us, and we had to make some changes as a result of that after the fact, after we heard some from residents. But I guarantee you from some of the discussion that I hear from opposition tonight that if mechanical equipment was to start going outside, that would open up a whole nother can of worms. To put it down on the lower level, then that takes away from what we think is, once again, as I mentioned tonight, is a 60-year decision. And probably, you know, I hope it's a right. I hope it's the right decision. Probably at the end of the day, 60 years from now, we'll look at that and say, I wish it had been 30,000 square foot store.
Okay, so basically we can't change that. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, it's not that we're unwilling to do it. It's just that we can't do it without such compromise that the project starts to take on. It doesn't even resemble what we started with and what our intent was.
One of the reasons I ask is this is a big decision amongst all of us up here.
Of course.
And once you get that project in there, I don't care what anybody else says, you're not going to be able to change anything or fix it. If you have any changes you want.
I agree.
So that's my main concern. My main concern is to see if we could work out a thing where we could lower the building, make it smaller, do this, have more parking. That's all maybe on my wish list, okay? I was just asking if it was possible, that's all. That's one of my concerns.
I totally understand, and obviously from a physical perspective, everything is possible, but it has implications that would probably they would be significant enough that that would detract from the intent of spending the kind of money that we're proposing to do for the return that might be, and also what we tend to accomplish.
Okay.
Because what we're trying to do is build the inside of the store large.
I understand. I went through this stuff a million times, read everything, so yeah, that was just my question. Okay.
Anything else? I've just got a couple other issues, little ones. We've decided we want to limit the time that the trash and deliveries are taking place. I think we've addressed the issue about the traffic concern of the delivery trucks in the corner there. I think your idea about expanding the street for additional parking makes some sense. We've got to look into that. Part of that rests on Vaughn's, part of that rests on us possibly. I like the project management idea so that someone knows who to call. There was a question about the lot coverage, but I understand, you are in escrow now?
I'm sorry?
Are you are in escrow for the property?
Yes, we are.
So there's
in escrow, we're under contract.
Under contract, okay, so, but there is no plot plan of the lot size? Somebody raised a question about lot coverage.
The plat has been surveyed, yes.
Okay. And have we checked out what the lot coverage is?
I haven't seen the actual parcel map, but the condition of approval that it was included is that it's not going to exceed the 80% lot coverage that's allowed. So whatever lot size it comes out to, it still has to comply. They can't create a non-conforming situation with a new lot.
And has the island company let you know where you can stage this stuff? All your construction materials?
No, but once again, I know that we're going to have to comply with the city, and the city is going to definitely, during the building permit process, is going to ask that question of ourselves and our contractor.
There was one thing earlier when Mr. Sampson was talking about the condensation. He wasn't talking about from the coolers. He was talking about from the HVAC. Was Mr. Carlisle suggest you might want to capture that condensation as a source of fresh water?
It's the same. It's obviously they're two different pieces of equipment, but the condensers are the same.
But isn't there condensation on them?
No, they're air cooled.
It takes, don't they? I mean, my AC takes water out of the air and makes it nice and cool and dry, and water runs in my drain.
Right.
Yours doesn't do that?
I wish I was a mechanical engineer,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm not. So I just have to. All I'm repeating is what the engineers told me to say.
You might ask them.
Well, I
Massive
did
amount
ask.
of
Them.
water.
That's what I got. That's the answer I got.
It's a massive amount of water.
It can be. One of the conditions that's been talked about is every beer that we buy on this island and every Diet Coke we buy on this island, we never get a chance to get back the deposit because there's nobody to receive it. So when you sell us a Coke, you charge us a nickel or a dime or whatever it is, and it goes in the trash, and the trash people get it. I've seen vending machines.
CRV?
CRV, yeah, California. I've seen vending machines at some stores where you take your empties there and put it in there, and they'll give you a little voucher for.
Those are operated by third-party vendors. They have nothing to do with our grocery store. And so, you know, there may be a vendor that's not something that we do, but there may be a vendor out there that does that.
So if there was
that
a
would
vendor,
be interested in, because it is a money-making operation. But you would have to then decide where you would put it, because the gathering area, because we have them in adjacent to a lot of our stores, in behind in the back somewhere, you know, and that would probably take up another 10,000 square feet or 5,000 square feet of space. And I'm just kind of guessing, thinking about where the trucks pull in, the people take all their.
I'm talking about a Coke machine size machine that you pop the can in the front, it compresses it, and somebody picks it up. So the footprint's 3 by 3.
Yeah, we don't own those, but I'm sure those things exist.
What did you say? You're sure they what?
They exist.
Yeah, they know they exist.
Yeah, we know they exist. What we're trying to come to is a way that people in Avalon can turn in their cans and their bottles and get redeemed for them, because that hasn't been able to happen over here.
They do have it outside grocery stores as a contract.
No.
Wait a minute. Let's not.
Thank you.
Would,
And years ago, the city and...
okay, come up to the microphone. Yes, okay, let's...
Okay. Years ago, I don't remember how long, it was Catalina Beverage, Bonds, Siegel Sanitation, I believe maybe the Island Company, I don't remember, but they got together for a meeting with the Department of Conservation on who is responsible for recycling, for giving back the CRB.
Right.
And basically what it came down to, and then this was years, and this was told to me from Bob Crow, who attended the meeting, that actually the grocery store was supposed to. Us as a vendor, we're a wholesaler, we were not required. And it was either the grocery store, Bonds, or at the time was Siegel Sanitation. Now, from what I understood at the time was that the question was transporting the recycled product off the island. That was going to get expensive. And it kind of stopped there. I think at the time, Jack Finney was alive at the time and said that he would consider giving a discounted rate or whatever to help facilitate to get that items off the island. But I do know and I do remember that I believe because of the volume that the store does, they are required to provide a recycling center. It was either them or Siegel Sanitation.
Okay.
Because right now they're pocketing the money. Siegel or whoever that has who has the sanitation thing
Yes.
going. They're pocketing the money.
Okay, so are we, maybe what's happening is we're paying the CRV when we purchase drinks, and is that's reflected on, I don't know if they're pocketing it, right? I mean, I think what they're doing is...
Whoever redeems it, whoever
Yeah.
is taking
Well, I
it
mean-
to a recycling
Right.
center, they're getting money back. Someone's getting that money back.
Sure they are, but do we get a reflection on that on our bills of somehow, or the way we're compensated from Siegel's, from the Senate? Okay.
I think we're taking a little tangent here that unfortunately I started it. But what I would encourage Vons to look at some way that the citizens of Avalon can get some of that CRV back, whether it be a small vending machine recycler or whatever.
It's a huge amount of money, and some of these, we're being charged, the people of Avalon are being charged for it, and our visitors are being charged for it, but nobody's getting reimbursed. Yes, Mark, except the people who process it.
Mark Tasca. The way it works is the store collects a CRV. Then the CRV is taxed. That tax money goes to the different recycle places as a handling fee for doing the CRV processing. So if you go and buy a six-pack for $2, you pay your 30-cent CRV, and you're taxed on that. The portion that's taxed for that 30 cents goes to the handling. The store on the #1 store here on Metropole, they received an exemption because they did not have the square footage to do CRV redemption only, not scrap aluminum or anything else. When they transfer over to this new store and it's not set in stone, they may have to supply a CRV redemption area. The exemption does not travel to a new store.
Maybe we solve the problem.
Does that answer?
Solve the problem. Thank you, Mr. Duffy.
I think
Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's an answer, but I want to make sure that we follow up on this and we understand where all this is a lot of money.
We can...
Can you please just make a note of that?
We can put a condition of approval that if the new store requires the CRV collection and repayment, that they will comply with state law. In other words, what Mr. Tasker was saying is because of the site,
yes,
because of the size of the store, state law may say, hey, you've got to accept these
Okay.
cans. And so we can put a condition in there that if that's the case, they will comply with state law.
Let's do that.
I have a possible suggestion for the Sumner Beacon. They're proposing to remove...
The intersection?
The intersection.
Oh, okay.
They're proposing to remove a stop sign.
Yeah.
I think we leave that stop sign there. I don't think we'll remove it. I mean, you have a stop sign,
yeah,
then you have a stop sign. It'd be a little bit inconvenient, but I think it just makes sense because it's crazy now.
It's crazy now. If this happens, everybody's got to know. You got to slow down. You got to look at. We got to be courteous. We got to really be driving carefully in the future, and then we'll try to monitor our own traffic problems. The city ourselves. We're going to try to do something, but we're going to be working on traffic and vehicle congestion in this town in the future. We'll be addressing that issue. But in the meantime, if this happens, you guys just got to be careful on that intersection. That's, you know.
I have two other things. One is that Vons annually will certify that they are below the employee housing, inclusionary housing number of employees. So they'll certify that there's 52 there, and they'll do that annually.
We can do that annually on a I guess you do it on an average or a peak basis. I don't know how that's done.
Peak basis.
Yeah,
Actually-
sorry, go ahead. So am I waiting for you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm looking at the condition of approval right now, that currently it's a condition, special condition number 4, which requires that if that they account for the peak number of seasonal employees, so we can add to that condition that they provide a report annually to the city.
Fair enough.
Okay, and what do you think about triple pane windows for the impacted
The
neighbors?
what?
Triple pane windows for the impacted neighbors?
Well, it sounds a bit to me. You know, I'm not against it to the extent that we're creating a problem that wasn't there before. Okay, so I mean I'll state that, but you know, I'm not in a position from the from a corporate perspective to say, well, I'll just give you an open checkbook. Anybody who applies, come get it. You know, if there's some special circumstance that can be proven out by having a beeping noise and a sound measuring piece of equipment that suggests that this is above the norm for those houses within that proximity, I think there's some reasonableness to this. And then the second piece of that, I think it's it's quite a subjective statement because, I mean, I'm not a sound engineer, and I don't know if you guys are. But, you know, just to throw out because somebody says triple pane, why stop there? You know, quadruple pane. So the point being is that, you know, dual pane might solve the issue. I don't know if it will or it won't. Mm-hmm. But if there's an issue and you're asking me, would we be reasonable and look to providing that? Yeah, with constraints that are equally reasonable.
You're putting up a 40-foot wall right in front of a business, so I think and that resonates. It has an echoing effect for any amount of noise. So I think
we're talking about the backup beeping of for the 40 seconds a day.
I'm talking about any kind of noise that comes down that street is going to resonate back and forth against those houses. But only one resident has asked for that. Okay.
No, and I appreciate that, but you know, again, appreciate the fact that, you know, whether that grocery store is there or not, you know, the trucks right now are going down there all the way, turning right. Those are not going to go there anymore, by the way, but to go down to Metropole, so they'll all stop because it'll now stop at Beacon and Catalina. So, you know, there's some mitigation in that respect. So, you know, because the store's there, it's not like, okay, everybody is now gravitating to there. Because in fact, one of the things that I probably missed out on my slide was, and I think it was pointed out by somebody else, was that by bringing the stores where they are right now, they have what's called a 90-degree trade area. In other words, because the water cuts off or 180-degree trade area because the water cuts off the other 180 degrees. And what happens with the store where it is now, being more centralized to the residential as opposed to centralized to the hotels and to the commercial property, is it creates a better pedestrian atmosphere, which is, of course, you know, suggests that that's where I came up with the comment being a bullseye site from a residential, being able to walk 2 blocks in any direction or drive 2 blocks in any direction and still be around houses. So, yeah, I mean, when you first brought it up tonight, and you mentioned, or somebody else did, I'm sorry, it may not have been you, council member, it was probably somebody else that said it was because of the beeping noise. You know, I think that they should do triple pane windows because of the beeping noise. To the extent that you expand that to all noise, if it's noise that's generated from that building, I'm fine. Those are things I'm willing to discuss, but not a subjective position of
It's a noise that will be resonated from a 40-foot wall 25 feet in front of their business. That's what it's going to be. It doesn't matter what noise it is. It could be a plane flying over. It's going to be trapped right down inside of that street. It's called ambient reverb is what it is. And it's just going to reverberate through there. So I understand where she's coming from. It's a pretty simple fix. All you got to do is say that, yeah, we'll work with her on it, and we'll get beyond this.
I'm fine with that, yes.
Okay, great.
And there's been a lot of discussion about shopping carts and whether we reinstitute the containment system that we had on the big Vons, or whether we don't put that in, and whether we have Vons do the shopping cart retrieval.
And so, condition number 11.
Yeah.
Well, I do actually live in Torrance right now. I used to live here. About the recycling thing, I hear you have to partner up with the recycling to the store, so the store has to partner up with recycling. It's not actually you have to provide recycling. And that's what I wanted to mention. And I have talked to a guy there, and he's the one who actually told me about it. I was in Ralph's, and he told me that they partner up with the recycling people. And I was like, oh, okay, because not many Ralphs have them, and not a lot of Vons have them. I actually haven't seen a Vons with a recycling place yet. But I most likely it's with Ralph's and whatnot. But I know that you have to partner up with them, and that's what they do.
They'll be partnering.
Thank you.
Yeah, the shopping carts at park containment perimeter.
That's on condition number 11, which provides, condition number 11 says that the cart containment perimeter will not be utilized, so the customers may take the cart home to reduce vehicle trips.
And Vons will be allowed to reinstitute the cart pickup program
Correct.
formerly utilized by the store in Metropole.
So we'd have to amend the municipal code as part of that, but the condition is that right now you can't move the shopping carts beyond a certain number of feet where Vons is. And as part of the effort on this one is to minimize traffic stops, we would allow people to take their carts home, and then Vons would have a program where they go out in the street and put them on a truck and bring them back.
Okay. Do you think we could possibly, something on top of this, possibly reach out to the vacation rentals and have them have little shopping carts in their rentals so that people can just take those from the rental and go to Vons and shop? That way...
We could certainly ask.
Yeah, we'll talk to Kevin if he's still here. Maybe that's in...
I bet you Vons would probably want to partner with these guys to save the cost of driving around town picking up all the shopping carts.
That's right, maybe.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson, Councilmember Hernandez has asked me to read something. It's on page 5 of our staff report. It's under the site plan. It's section B. For approval and disapproval of any site plan shall be based upon the following factors and principles. And it's section B. Every use, development of land, and application of development standards shall be considered on the basis of the suitability of the site for the particular use or development intended, and the total development, including the application of the prescribed development standards, shall be so arranged as to avoid traffic congestion, ensure the protection of public health, safety, and general welfare, prevent adverse effects on neighboring properties, and shall be in general accord with all elements of the general plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just don't think we've covered that yet. It says right there, right? That's part of the approval and disapproval, right? That's what we'll be voting on?
That's one of them.
Right?
That's one of them.
That's one, correct?
Correct. That's
okay.
So, do we have any additional conditions we want to impose? Mr. Sampson?
I'm reading through this right now, just very carefully. To avoid traffic congestion, right off the bat, geez, we've got 3,500 vehicles over here. I mean, it's just getting out of hand. We got to address that ourselves. Ensure the protection of public health. Absolutely. I think we've made some concessions on that. But let's see. Do you have any major concerns about that? The protection.
Well, the traffic, so still, I'm not satisfied with the traffic reports. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the traffic guy could come up. I don't know what day they did all these reports or how it came out with his number.
I remember when they did them.
Was it a weekend? Was it a Sunday afternoon after the boats left? Was it Saturday when everybody's here? Was it a cruise ship day?
I tell you what, it wasn't people
Are
from
those
here.
reports?
It
Can
wasn't
you
people from
get
here
up and
taking-
talk about that for a moment? On traffic, when you did them and what time, do you remember? On what day of the week? Was it Sunday when the boats left, or was it during a cruise ship day?
That's a good question. The baseline traffic counts we used in the study were done last summer on a Tuesday and a Saturday during peak season. Similar to now, it was July, but it was peak season. The Saturday, there was a cruise ship in port. There were a lot of people here. When we did our surveys at the stores to get at mode split and trip generation estimates, it's the same day that we did the traffic counts, or are the same days, the same 2 days. So the answer to your question is yes.
Tuesday, Saturday.
They were done at peak
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Okay, so the protection of public health, I mentioned that. Safety and general welfare. I brought that up because I'm really concerned about the backing up of the main trucks from the barge, and then the corner of Beacon and Sumner. It's just gonna be just crazy. But it already is, and, you know, I can't take all that back. We can't take all these cars back at this point right now. We can have another program put into place to where we start drawing back one vehicle for every two vehicles that are brought out. One vehicle is re-brought in. So that's the way we can draw back on some of the vehicles that are here.
Just as a reminder, you will be having another transportation study session in the near future where that's on the list of things you identified to discuss.
Okay, safety in general for prevent adverse effects on neighboring properties and shall be in general accord with all elements of the general plan. Okay, prevent adverse effects on neighboring properties. We've addressed that tonight, and we got the word of Mr. Bratton, and he said he'll work with the Old Turner Inn to see whatever effects that might have on their business and on their customers will be mitigated. Property and shelter. Okay, so general accord with all elements of the general plan. So, Steve, does this fall in line with all elements of the general plan? Do you know our general plan that well?
I've gone through it, yes, and I would say it is in general accord. That was the original recommendation from staff, and that was also voted on and approved by the Planning Commission.
Okay, and then our general plan is basically just, it's a book, it's something that we go by and try to attain those goals, right? And
It's a guide.
Guidelines.
It's a guide, but the general plan specifically designates this area as a commercial area. And so the general plan says commercial will be here in this area. The plan of the city is to have commercial in this area, and this is in fact a commercial project, which is consistent with what the general plan says should be in this area, which is commercial. I mean, and the general plan looks at all the zones and says, here are the types of uses that you should have in this area of the city. And in this area, the general plan says commercial use, like a grocery store, is appropriate. So therefore, this is consistent with the general plan.
Okay, it is, but at the same time, it's an area where the commercial area marries into the residential area. It's a very sensitive spot here, and I understand what Councilman Hernandez is getting to. We need to make sure that we do this right and it's done correctly. And we need to work with Bonds, and Bonds needs to work with us. We can't be like battling at this. Island Company, City of Avalon, Bonds, we got to work together on this, okay? And if this is going to work right, and you know, we can't make hard stances and draw hard lines. So, that's all my comments for that.
Let me go over the conditions I think that we are amending. I think we're amending the conditions about the delivery times and trash times. I think we're amending the inclusionary housing portion of it.
Just to require the annual audit.
Annual audit.
Annual certification.
We're working on strengthening, I think, the intersection issue.
That's condition number 16. Yeah. We're just going to add that the safety plan will be subject to approval by city staff, planning staff, and updated if conditions change.
Okay. Anything that I missed, Mr. Sampson?
That deals with the...
Is that everything we talked about?
That's it. It deals with the flag issue and flagman issue. And if we need additional flagmen, there will be a plan that they'll have to add more if it turns out to be inadequate.
And we've talked about putting 1 hour parking or full-size parking on one side of the street and golf cart parking on the other side of the street. And
Yes.
we're going to work with the island company to see if we need to increase the width of the street to accommodate the parking.
Yes, we're going to reach out to them. I was told today that someone might get up and say something about it, but since they didn't, I had a handshake of Mr. Rusak and Mr. Harrell that they would work with us on this if this project was approved at that point. So that's good enough for me.
And 12 is that Bonds will consider the feasibility of providing or allowing for grocery delivery service.
Yes, that's still there.
That's still in there.
Yeah. I know it's still in there, but John, do you recognize that's still in there? Mr. Bratton?
I'm sorry.
I wish I could do it. You guys are still going to consider grocery delivery services to help cut down on traffic and such?
Yeah.
I think that we would work with providers of grocery delivery services, and also, I think that was the great thing about putting that little drive-through up in the front there, and, it enabled us to be able to, get the groceries out there, get the person out there safely, and then to wait for either pickup or delivery or pickup of the groceries themselves or of the individual. So yes, of course.
Okay. And we're going to have some signage on the project to allow for
Project manager and a phone number, yep.
Steve, what does the restrooms look like in the facility? Do you know offhand?
No, I don't. I haven't seen the square footage. I haven't seen the floor plan layout. This is a conceptual plan.
So we don't have, at this stage in the game, we don't have construction drawings which would detail those types of
But
things.
we'll have public restrooms, correct?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
The Planning Commission recommends that they don't have shopping cart containment to help cut down on the amount of golf cart traffic and car traffic, but Vons will go back and pick up golf carts from the neighborhood that have walked away from the store.
Shopping carts.
I think that's right.
Okay. So
Planning Commission,
Okay.
the Planning Commission just could see the writing on the wall in terms of the golf carts getting taken all over the place, not getting picked up in a timely fashion because we're doing something else or we're driving somewhere else. And so they actually put the condition on us that they wanted the cart containment.
So we'll continue the cart containment in this area, and we'll have to amend the municipal code to make certain that if the municipal code has certain street names like Metropole, that it be adjusted to this location.
What was that?
Okay, and he just, none of us recall exactly what the code says at this moment. If it calls out a street name, we're going to probably have to
Amend the municipal code to make certain that,
We'll look at it.
that it's
So
the right street.
11's changing then.
Right.
Back to containment.
Yes.
And we're going to reach out to the vacation rentals and see if they might be able to put some little shopping carts inside of
If they're
their
within the
units.
containment area, yes.
Missing anything?
I'm sure there's something that we may be overlooking, and I'm hoping that the Goodwill of Vons will allow us some room, some tolerance for error here, that we might have left something out, so we can reach out to you. If there's something that we don't feel good about, we're coming to you, Bill,
And let me just add that,
or whoever your
excuse
your
me,
contractor is.
that these additional conditions or modifications are intended not to add to the environmental mitigations discussed, because again, the mitigated negative deck is appropriate, but they're specifically to address the site plan second condition, which is the one that we just read into the record about making certain that this site is suitable for the particular use or development, and that the total development, including the application of this development standards, is arranged to avoid traffic congestion and ensure the public's health, safety, welfare. So these conditions are specifically addressed to help make the finding that the project will not create traffic congestion, negatively impact public health, safety, and general welfare.
Would you like to make a motion? Here's the motion.
Yeah, I will make a motion. I make a motion, adopt revised mitigated negative deck and mitigated monitoring program. I also make that motion to approve a site plan based on the findings presented in this staff report and subject to the conditions of approval attached to the staff report.
And as modified.
And as modified. Also approve a coastal development permit based on the findings presented in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval attached to this staff report.
Thank you, sir. I'll second. Further discussion on the council?
I just like to say this has been a very tenuous journey, this whole Vons project. We just wanted to get it right. and we still want to get it right, and we're still going to work on getting this right. There have been a lot of people that haven't been a very good spirit about this, and they haven't been very good players. We've taken a lot of flack unnecessarily, because we promised you when we got elected that we were going to do the right thing for this community, and we're going to fight for what's right for this community. I'm sorry, it's not going to please everybody, but we're doing our best. And you know what? I think that a couple members up here got some unruly flack from the directions that we've spoke about to some people in this room, and you know who you are. And I just want to say, in the spirit of good nature, you're forgiven. I forgive you. We love you. We're here for you. Just want to say.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. I will call for the question.
For the vote.
2 ayes, Councilmember Sampson and Mayor Pro Tem Olson. 1 no, Councilmember Hernandez, and 2 abstentions would be Mayor Marshall and Councilmember Cassidy.
Thank you. That's it?
Thank you guys so much.
We have no more business?
Did you adjourn?
I'm going to. We're adjourned.